across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening on a momentous day in UK politics. One Prime Minister is gone, another is in. Andy Burnham has become Prime Minister. He's been appointed by the King and he's appointing his cabinet right now. We know that John Healey is now the Chancellor. We know as well that Ed Miliband is the Foreign Secretary. Shabana Mahmood staying as Home Secretary. And Angela Rayner's just gone in to Downing Street as well. She'll be getting some sort of top job as well. We'll bring it to you as soon as it happens throughout the next 3 hours here on Talk. We'll also get reaction from senior figures within the political world. We'll hear what Reform has had to say. We'll hear what the Labour Party is saying. Two MPs who nominated Andy Burnham for Prime Minister will be talking to us, as will a Conservative as well. There's a lot to chew over. I want to hear from you on it as well. What do you think of these appointments? Are they going to change the country? Are they going to get the change back in our pockets? 0344 499 1000. We'll also reflect on Kevin Keegan's death as well. And as you'll have been hearing as well, there's been a charge in the murder case of Anne Whittaker. We won't be reflecting too much on that because once someone's charged, it makes things more complicated legally, but just to let you know in case you hadn't heard already. So much to discuss this evening. I want to discuss it with you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note with what's on your mind. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Thanks for your company. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Well, we will keep you right up to date in the next 3 hours with what's happening and your reaction, of course, to it. Dodge says Andy Burnham probably thinks the 70s was great because he was born in 1970. Becky says Andy Burnham is a 50-plus-year-old toddler having a temper tantrum because he's hell-bent on bringing revenge on Margaret Thatcher and any Conservative policy. I think we now know that for certain, says Becky. Also, Simon in Portadown in Northern Ireland says, good to have Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary, send him around the globe to far-flung places and he can do less damage at home with all the net zero nonsense, says Simon. He's also glad that Shabana Mahmood is staying in her role. Stop the boats, he says. Let's just go through the day before we speak to Bill Esterson, the Labour MP for Sefton Central, one of those 379 who nominated Andy Burnham to be leader of the Labour Party and now Prime Minister. Burnham was given and had the full support of Keir Starmer pledged. I was in Downing Street earlier on today when Starmer made his final address as Prime Minister. Let's just remind ourselves briefly of what he said.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support.
So Keir Starmer then went off to Buckingham Palace, I should say, from Downing Street, and very shortly afterwards, Andy Burnham and his wife were called in. They came back to Downing Street, and Andy Burnham is there now. There have been quite a few sackings as well. We'll go into those in a second. But first of all, let's hear from the man himself, the new Prime Minister, and what he said just outside the number 10 door. I was there as he was telling us what he wants to do as Prime Minister.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around, and that's why we will change politics.
So let me just bring you up to date with what has happened. So we know that John Healey, you remember the Defence Secretary who resigned? That was a few weeks ago. That precipitated Keir Starmer going. He is now the Chancellor and the right-hand man economically of Prime Minister Andy Burnham. Ed Miliband has been named Foreign Secretary. We still don't know what's going on with Yvette Cooper. I think she's in Downing Street at the moment, if I remember correctly. Shabana Mahmood is staying as Home Secretary. We also know that Louise Haigh, who was very instrumental in Andy Burnham's campaign, in fact, she said it was going on for a year for him to become Prime Minister. She is Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, First Secretary of State and Minister for the Cabinet Office. So that is an absolutely central role within government, and she will be very important in driving through what Andy Burnham wants to do. We also know that quite a number of people have left government. Nick Thomas-Symonds has been sacked as Paymaster General, Hilary Benn as Northern Ireland Secretary, Darren Jones as Chief Secretary of the Prime Minister, Joe Stevens isn't Welsh Secretary anymore, Liz Kendall's gone as Science Secretary, Lord Hermer has been sacked as Attorney General, hooray, and Rachel Reeves obviously has gone. She apparently was offered Defence Secretary but declined, and David Lammy has gone as Deputy Prime Minister as well. In Downing Street right now, Jonathan Reynolds, who was the Chief Whip, he may well go back to his old brief as Business Secretary. Lisa Nandy is in there as well. Could she get Housing Secretary? Lots to discuss in all of that. We will also discuss another big story today, which is the very sad death of Kevin Keegan, the footballing legend who died at the age of 75.
When you do that with footballers, like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart Pearce...
Iconic moments. We'll be reflecting on an extraordinary career, both as player and manager, a little bit later on in the show. I want to speak to Bill Esterson now. Bill is a Labour MP for Sefton Central. Bill, you're very kind to join us this evening. No doubt with one eye on your mobile phone should it ring, summoning you to Downing Street. What do you make of the appointments so far? The Healey appointment I thought was a good one. It's an interesting one too, because he has said that 3% of what this country makes should go to defence his old brief. I've been speaking to one person, or WhatsApping one person quite senior in the Ministry of Defence this evening, who described themselves as cock-a-hoop at the appointment of John Healey as Chancellor of the Exchequer. What do you think?
Peter, thank you very much for having me on the show, and a very good joke there about my mobile phone, I think. But I'm delighted that John's been appointed Chancellor. I mean, I am really optimistic about Andy, about what he brings, the hope he's generated. I listened to some of the comments from some of your viewers earlier, and absolutely, it's a real sea change in the approach that we're taking, looking outwards, greater engagement. This whole point of taking power away from the centre, so that we can change that culture but stop things happening. And as to John being Chancellor, he's got a great opportunity now to put into practice what he said he wanted to do. He recognises the serious nature of the threat we face from Putin and from Russia, and the immediacy of that threat. I mean, I'm on the Joint Committee of the National Security Strategy, as well as being Chair of the Energy Security Committee, and I'm in no doubt from the evidence that I've seen, all of which is in the public domain, that we have not taken this seriously enough as a country for a good decade. And I hope and believe that John will turn that around. And Andy completely gets this, which is why he committed to...
OK. John Healey has actually just tweeted in the last few minutes, "It's the greatest privilege to be appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer by the Prime Minister. Together we will build a new economy, build new hope and advance the working people of this country. Time to get on with the job." We've also heard a real desire from Andy Burnham to increase international development aid. Where is all this money going to come from, Bill?
Well, Peter, the point I was about to finish was that, of course, by investing in our manufacturing, in sovereign building all of our defence capability, it boosts the economy. It creates really good, well-paid jobs. And that gives us the growth that will deliver the spending across the public realm.
But the money originally just comes from public spending. So where does that come from? That's going to be higher taxes, isn't it?
Well, Andy has been clear on a number of things. Cost of living is critical, but also a rigorous approach to the public finances. And I think one of the things he said that struck me was a desire and a belief that we've got to bring down the wealth. And I think we can look at that as an immediate place where the new government will go and will have more success than Keir and Rachel Ray.
Yvette Cooper has just gone into Downing Street. Looks as if Pat McFadden's going in as well. This is quite a big turnaround in the number of cabinet ministers. So Yvette Cooper, Pat McFadden.
They're both cabinet ministers at the moment.
Well, they're both cabinet ministers already, as you say. Yvette Cooper. Well, she's not going to be the foreign secretary because Ed Miliband is, so she's going somewhere else, presumably. Pat McFadden is the Work and Pensions Secretary. We'll see where he goes, or maybe stays in the same brief. Lisa Nadi, Jonathan Reynolds and Angela Rayner still in there. I just wonder, Bill, what you think of what the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, said, particularly about rough sleeping. I just want to hear another clip of what the Prime Minister said when he was giving his address, his first address as Prime Minister today at Downing Street. Let's just hear this and then I'll get your reaction, Bill.
We will help people to live well, building a more preventative state, investing in people's success rather than paying for failure. And that work starts now. I will soon go through that door behind me and issue my first instruction to end rough sleeping in our country.
I really want Andy Burnham to end rough sleeping in our country. Rough sleeping is dreadful. There are far too many people who should have homes and should have a roof over their head who don't. There are many of our veterans who are rough sleeping. I think it's a really good thing to want to do. It's something that I worked on when I was in government as a special advisor. I advised on rough sleeping policy. I worked a little bit with Andy Burnham's administration in Manchester when he tried to do reasonably good things there. But Bill, within the last 4 years in Manchester, rough sleeping went up. Homelessness as a general total went up in Manchester. We also know that this £340 million isn't new money from the housing budget. We've also heard about defence. We're hearing about the cost of living as well. If Andy Burnham is to stick to the fiscal rules, where is the money going to come from?
About rough sleeping in Greater Manchester, but I think what Andy's realised, and he's recognised this in what he said, is that you have to deal with this across the country as a whole. You can't deal with it in isolation in one city. I think that's one of the lessons. And as you say, this is going to be using existing money, so it's not a question of where the money comes from. You're quite right. You know, these are veterans. These are people with severe mental health illness. These are people who were in the care system. And it goes to the kind of society that we want to live in on the one hand. And I think helping those who are most vulnerable is a part of the kind of change in the country that Andy wants to see and that will really mark out the kind of government that he leads. But on the other, if we want to improve our towns and cities, and indeed our rural areas as well, having things like rough sleeping is an enormous cost. And as Andy said, we're paying for the cost of social failure. We don't deal with things like rough sleeping, and actually it helps the economy if we aren't having to pay those sorts of costs. We're investing in a better life for everybody.
Bill, thank you very much indeed. I appreciate you joining us this evening. Always good to talk to you. That's Bill Esterson, MP. He's the Labour MP for Sefton Central. Shabana Mahmood has said the post of Home Secretary is the best job in the business. After Andy Burnham has kept her in the role, she said she'll continue with immigration reform. She says it's an honour to remain as Home Secretary in Andy Burnham's cabinet. I may be biased, but it's the best job in the business. We have begun the work of major reform to make our streets safer and our immigration system fair for all. Now let's finish the job. Neil's been in touch and says, can we please arrange an urgent meeting in Washington for the Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary? I would love to be a fly on the wall for that one. Well, it's really interesting you mentioned that actually, Neil, because Andy Burnham has said lots of disobliging things about Donald Trump previously, as has Ed Miliband. Becca says, is someone going to have a quiet word in Burnham's ear and tell him that the unions brought down the country, not Thatcherism, says Becca. He clearly hates what Thatcher did in the 1980s. And Joe says, I wonder if John Healey is Chancellor, now he will give the armed forces the money they need, says Joe in Norfolk. Joe, I think you're right, and I think it would be unthinkable for John Healey to take the role of Chancellor without knowing that all the money he wants to go to defence will go there. I mean, his credibility would be shot to pieces as a result if he hadn't made that deal with Burnham previously. So that's great for defence. And as I said, I spoke to a senior person in the Ministry of Defence earlier today on WhatsApp, and that person said they were absolutely cock-a-hoop, as I would imagine many other civil servants were. So it's really interesting what is happening there. Also, Annalise Midgley, who is a key Burnham lieutenant, is entering 10 Downing Street as well. I think her role may end up as chief whip. She's not a particularly high-profile MP, but she and Louise Haigh were the two women behind the scenes, people behind the scenes, who were championing Andy Burnham for many, many months, way before he became an MP. So she is an absolutely key ally of the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. Just to update you, we've been speaking to Bill Esterson there, just to update you, I'll not go through all the people who've left government, I will tell you who's been appointed. Of course, we have Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary, John Healey as Chancellor, Shabana Mahmood remaining Home Secretary, Louise Haigh First Secretary of State. We know Annalise Midgley, as I was mentioning there, Pat McFadden, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy, Jonathan Reynolds and Angela Rayner are all in 10 Downing Street at the moment. So you've got 6 people waiting for jobs. I would imagine it's a pretty tricky discussion with Yvette Cooper, who's been Foreign Secretary. There's no real big role left for her. So does she take something else? Does she go back to what she did during the Brown years as Work and Pensions Secretary? What would Pat McFadden think of that? It's all to play for, and we'll tell you exactly what is happening as soon as we know it. Clearly, Shabana Mahmood delighted to stay on at the Home Office, and John Healey has said what a privilege it is to be Chancellor. Thanks also to Keith in Lincolnshire, who says, where is the money coming from for more overseas aid? Looking forward to paying more taxes. Annie must have found the new money tree. Cloud Cuckoo Land. No mention of all the things that need to be sorted. What your guest is saying is more taxes, says Keith in Lincolnshire. Well, I mean, in fairness to Bill Esterson, he did essentially answer that question. And yes, public money may well go into defence. It may well go into building the kind of capability we need. But that public money is taxpayers' money, and the taxpayers are you and me. Also, if Andy Burnham does what we think he's going to do tomorrow and agrees with John Healey that the threshold for tax should go up, that would help a lot of people, including pensioners who are brought into tax. But actually, that would mean less money for the Treasury and less money to pay down our debt and to pay for these things like overseas aid, like the defence capability as well. We'll keep you up to date on every single thing that's happening. We'll go to our debate desk as well. I anticipate between now and 8 o'clock in the debate desk, there'll be more appointments that are released. Stay with us here on Talk for the very latest from Downing Street and in the studio, because Joe will be with us, as will Sean Hickey. So there's lots to discuss with them. Joe Wheeler, of course, meteorologist and broadcaster, and Sean Hickey from Politics Joe. So stay with us here on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Carol in Liverpool has just asked me on Twitter whether there is a Deputy Prime Minister yet. I'm not sure there'll be a Deputy Prime Minister. What's interesting is that Louise Haigh, who is the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and First Secretary of State, that's essentially the Deputy Prime Minister in all but name. Back in Theresa May's day, they had a First Secretary of State, also under Boris Johnson as well, if I remember correctly. So she is First Secretary of State, Louise Haigh, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and Minister for the Cabinet Office. I was actually having a cup of tea with her boyfriend, who is an MP for the SDLP, former leader Colm Eastwood, a little bit earlier on today. So he was very hopeful that she would get something good, and there we are. Inside Downing Street at this moment, Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Yvette Cooper, Pat McFadden and Annalise Midgley. I'll let you know as soon as I know what rules they've been appointed to. Louise Haigh, we've told you about. Shabana Mahmood, remaining Home Secretary. John Healey is Chancellor and Ed Miliband is Foreign Secretary. Let's speak to our debate desk panellist. Joe Wheeler is a meteorologist and broadcaster, is with us now. Hi Joe, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks, and you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And great to see Sean Hickey, Head of Content at Politics. Joe, how are you doing?
Good to see you as well, Peter.
What do you make of John Healey being Chancellor? Lots of people didn't see that coming. I think it's good politics, actually.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because of the defence spending and leaving in a huff and everything, and then putting him into this position. I think when you peel back the layers of John Healey, the onion that is John Healey, and you look at his history before he's a politician, he has no background in economics at all. So it's quite an interesting one.
He was a minister in the Treasury. He was Financial Secretary of the Treasury for 2 years. He was Economic Secretary of the Treasury for 3 years, all under Tony Blair. So he has some knowledge of the Treasury and how it all works.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good one to have in the system, isn't it? But I think with the Burnham premiership, there was a lot of talk and whispering around before he had gotten in that the idea would be that number 11 is going to be further and further closer to number 10, and he would like to have more of a say over what's going on. I think it's an interesting one. It could backfire on him, given how gung-ho John Healey was when it came to the spending review.
Yeah, it's interesting, certainly with that, with the defence budget. I mean, John Healey wants 3% of GDP to be given to defence. It's currently around 2.6, 2.7, so we're talking billions of pounds. We're not talking about small amounts of money. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has just gone into Downing Street as well. We'll see what happens to her. I will let you know as soon as I know. Joe, your reaction to John Healey as Chancellor? He said he's delighted with it, but clearly defence is going to be a big priority for him.
Well, absolutely. And I always felt that the whole situation with Starmer took a major turn when Healey walked away.
Yes.
You know, there was discussion. Trump had spoken about it. The amount of money that Britain was spending on defence was not enough. It was not protecting us the way that it needed to. And then we had that complete fiasco with warships leaving and then having to pull into the nearest dock to get a few more pancakes or whatever it was they didn't have. So the fact of the matter is that this guy is now being put in control of the country's purse, yes, and Burnham has to honour that defence spending. Otherwise, John Healey ends up looking like an absolute idiot, and a liar, and somebody who's not true to what he said.
Just to say, we can see on the screen now, if people are watching, Lucy Powell, who's the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Maybe she'll be Deputy Prime Minister, although First Secretary of State sort of means that. Lucy Powell has just gone in to Downing Street. She was doing all the interviews yesterday, speaking up for Starmer, very close. Burnham. Gotta remember.
Keep track these
Gotta
days.
remember who the Prime Minister is. Writing it down. So she, no doubt, will be given something big. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Joe, sorry I cut you off there. Apologies.
No, it's all right. You're obviously following the people there. Just, you know, you of all people will know about the cat.
Yes, it's interesting with Larry because Larry was awoken this morning by some street cleaners, by a street cleaning machine. Also, I was in contact with Burnham's people just a few minutes before we came on air, and Axel, the rescue dog, is quote-unquote TBC as to whether Axel comes to Downing Street. And John Healey, I understand, did have a dog until recently. Dog sadly died, so he doesn't have any animals. Perhaps more important is the fact that the new Prime Minister had calls with Donald Trump, with President Zelensky, and with Ursula von der Leyen of the European Union as his first 3 calls. Were they the right calls, Sean, do you think?
I think he's obligated to do them, isn't he? Especially with Donald Trump. The interesting one, I think, that we've seen with Donald Trump in the last couple of hours was the invitation to the G20, wasn't it, where the UK is hosting it this year. It's going to be in Manchester, decided by Andy Burnham. I wonder if everyone's going to be staying in number 10 North while they're there as well.
Well, indeed.
But the kind of the tiff between them when it came to the North Sea, are we going to be expanding? Are we going to be granting more licences in the North Sea? And then also, he's a mayor of a small village, a small town in the north of England. It's an interesting one to have done as the first, and then obviously with...
They are our closest ally, I suppose, but certainly Andy Burnham... Trump is on the record saying disobliging things about Andy Burnham. Yeah. Andy Burnham is on the record saying disobliging things about Donald Trump.
The Vice President is on the record saying bad things about Donald Trump.
Very good point, as is our new Foreign Secretary, Ed Miliband. That's an important relationship, Joe, isn't it?
With America and Trump, absolutely. And you do get the feeling that the timbre of the relationship was slightly kind of poking the bear. Yeah, you know, I'm delighted to hear that you're going to be opening up drilling again. Are you? Am I? You know, it's one of those, this is what I want to see you do. And Burnham's come back and saying, yes, we want the Straits of Hormuz opened. We need to have that ability to make our way through there, to start putting supplies right and all sorts of things. So I think it's probably quite a brittle relationship at the moment. It might warm, and it might go a little chilly.
I mean, the third character in that as well, being Ursula von der Leyen, is an interesting one as well, given that he's said in the past that he wants the UK to rejoin the EU.
Yeah, and he's also said within that phone call with Ursula von der Leyen, the Prime Minister, we're told in this Downing Street spokeswoman, said the Prime Minister thanked President von der Leyen for her warm congratulations, adding he was looking forward to working closely with her and her team. So, I mean, he would say that anyway, but certainly with the thoughts about the future of our relationship with the EU, that will be welcomed by those who want it and feared by those who don't.
Yeah, big time. I mean, especially when you're considering what Keir Starmer had been doing for the last 2 years. I mean, the closer and closer alignment with the European Union. Almost the only thing I feel like him and Ed Davey disagreed on was how close he was. Everybody else was opposed to how close Keir Starmer was. Ed Davey was convinced he wasn't close enough. He wanted to rejoin. He wanted the single market, the customs union. But I think in the Labour government under Starmer, we've been almost a de facto European Union state. I think with someone like Andy Burnham in charge, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes with that.
Where do you think that relationship goes, Joe? With the EU?
I think he's looking to get closer and closer. Of all the things that were said today, and frankly, as he stood outside number 10, you know, the things he said, you spoke about the homeless earlier, you know, there was nothing there to object to. There were a lot of questions to be asked, such as, excuse me, where's the money coming from? That does interest me. And then the digital ID out the window. You're thinking, no, that doesn't sit right. I'm not sure about that. With all the things that you are looking to do, and, you know, you are following in Starmer's footsteps in terms of the EU, there's an awful lot that's not being said here, and an awful lot of questions that need to be asked.
It's early days, though, as well. I mean, this is he hasn't been Prime Minister for 24 hours, but there has been a real lack of scrutiny, hasn't there?
Completely. I mean, honestly, it's like listening to a large family decide to go to the Caribbean for Christmas, and you all discuss what you're going to do there and the food you're going to eat and, you know, what your wardrobe's going to be, and nobody asks the question, how are we paying for this? It's going to cost thousands, you know, and in this case, it's billions, it's trillions. They're talking about raising the foreign aid budget to 11 billion, yeah, which is... You know, and then says that the first...
I think it's by 11 billion, because I think it is about 15 billion at the moment.
Billion.
Yes, up to...
But then the first thing I'm going to do is go in and tackle the issue of homelessness. OK, well, that 11 billion, or, you know, whatever sum you want to put on it, would go an awful long way to sorting out homelessness in this country. And I'm not just talking about the people who sleep rough at the moment. I'm talking about the people who have found themselves pushed down council queues.
Yes.
Yes, you know, and providing that kind of housing.
And living in B&Bs as well. I mean, I dealt with this issue a lot. I advised on homelessness at the ministry when I was a special advisor, and I remember the head of shelter telling me, you know, the babies don't learn to crawl because they don't have time, they don't have room. They don't have room in the B&Bs that they put them in. It's just horrendous. So £340 million to end rough sleeping is a good start, I think. It's not new money and will be reallocated, but I mean, I wish him well with that. I hope it works. Linda in Worcestershire says a convicted fraudster rewarded with one of the most powerful and influential positions in the UK government. That's Louise Haigh. She is a convicted fraudster who says crime doesn't pay. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out when the lefties are banging on about Farage and Posh George. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to Linda who sent that in, and also to Dawn who says I preferred Andy Burnham when he was in Thunderbirds. Even today there are plenty of even today there are plenty of strings attached, says Dawn. Very good. And Neil in the Rhondda Valley says this is the truth of the matter. Maggie would run rings around Burnham. I would have loved to see what would have happened if Mrs Thatcher was leader of the opposition today. Great show, says Neil in Rhondda. Well, actually, interestingly, I have written an article today for the IE newspaper about Kemi Badenoch and how I think she will oppose Andy Burnham. I think she will do it reasonably well, and she's got very little to lose because I don't think too many people are saying that she'll be the next Prime Minister, so she can kind of go for broke on that. We'll come back to the debate desk in a minute. We'll find out what's going on with those different appointments as well, and we'll find out what Sean and Joe think of the other news of the day as well, including the very sad news that Kevin Keegan has died. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's just see what Andy Burnham has been saying again as Prime Minister. I was there in Downing Street when he made this speech earlier on today. I've been reporting for the different programmes right throughout the day, and when Burnham came back from the Palace, his first speech as Prime Minister, this is part of what he said on the road at Downing Street.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around, and that's why we will change politics.
That was Andy Burnham earlier today. Quite a lot in that, and he's really talking about being very, very radical. We're on the debate desk, I should say, with Sean Hickey and with Joe Wheeler. Sean, he talked about what he saw as the negative bits of the 1980s when it comes to centralisation, privatisation and deindustrialisation. He says he wants the biggest change in 40 years, both politically and economically. Can he deliver that whilst keeping to the Labour manifesto within the fiscal rules? How is that possible?
I think with the Labour Party, the thing that they've struggled with for the longest time is identifying their leaders with the philosophy of the Labour movement. When you look at people like Clement Attlee, the post-war government, and the things that Labour have been able to do for Britain, and how the Starmer government, for example, goes into number 10, doesn't have a plan for the first 100 days. The interesting thing when it came to
you can say what you like about Burnham. Sorry to interrupt you. You can say what you like about Burnham. He has a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
He has
and
a plan.
It's, to be frank, Peter, it's admirable to see someone come in and say, this, even on the homelessness point, while we can debate whether it's going to happen or not, the idea that he's gone in there on day one and said, by the end of my term in here, I will have done something to solve homelessness.
Well, it's not even as late as that. He says as soon as possible. You know, he says as soon as is possible. Let's end rough sleeping. He should say rough sleeping and homelessness. Homelessness, obviously, rough sleepers are homeless, but there are lots of people in temporary accommodation as well. That's a much bigger problem as well. Maybe it's something that he'll get to, but he has big ambition.
Yeah, massively. And I mean, with the homelessness aspect of it, or the rough sleeping, I beg your pardon, aspect, again, having a plan, considering an hour before that, Keir Starmer was talking about the pride that he was leaving the job with, where a lot of the things that the Labour government under Starmer are looking at are things that he had to be convinced to U-turn on the whole way through, whether it's the two-child benefit, winter fuel payments, things like this, were policies of his government, and it was only for the threat of mutiny from his own ranks that he then U-turned on these things. So at least there is, although the majority of the people in the country, the vast majority of the people in the country did not vote for this guy, at least he's standing for something.
Is the ambition too great, or do you welcome this, Joe?
The ambition is way too great. And as I say, if you listen to the speech today, you go, yeah, that sounds great. You know, now come on and tell me how you're going to do it. I listened with horror when he was saying, you know, sort of things were great back in the 70s and then 80s. We took some misturns. Not least of all because, and I'm sure we'll come to this later, I was there.
Surely not.
I may have been a little young to actually have thought through the politics at the time.
Are you old or older? That's the question.
I'm neither old nor
classic.
I'd agree with that.
My children tell me I'm perpetually young. But anyway, the point is, I do remember those times. And I saw something on X today that actually went through the achievements of the Thatcher years in terms of driving down unemployment and, you know, sort of economic growth. And I mean, the list went on and on and on. And I'm thinking...
Taxes down as well, people taken out of tax, lots of different things.
How can you literally sit there and say there were wrong turns taken in the 80s when things improved so massively from the absolute hellhole that it was in the 70s.
Didn't improve for everybody though, did they? If you're in one of these places, one of these forgotten places that Andy Burnham's talking about, if your pit closed, for example, and the main source of income was gone, you're not going to like Margaret Thatcher, are you?
I totally agree, and you know, not only do I live in the East Midlands and I play for brass bands where, you know, those sores are still relatively recent. You know, I understand that. I also understand, as I'm sure you do, that nobody is going to be able to satisfy everybody. Yeah, that simply can't happen. But the one thing that I do look at in terms of what Burnham has said, if you sit and squeeze the middle classes again, the people who watch this station, the alarm clock Britons, the ones going out to work, if you keep squeezing them to pay for those who do not work, then there is going to be a revolt at some point.
Well, it'll be interesting to see who is in charge of that change to welfare, which is so sorely needed. Yvette Cooper and Pat McFadden. Pat McFadden is the current Work and Pension Secretary. As far as we know, he was tight-lipped leaving Number 10, as Yvette Cooper did as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Yvette Cooper, who's no longer the Foreign Secretary, in fact we don't know which role she now occupies, hasn't been put to work in pensions, because that was her role within the Brown administration. That was her last job as Secretary of State before 2010 when the Conservatives took over. And then she remained as Shadow Welfare Secretary for some time. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm just updating everything, and the top team behind the glass are keeping an eye on things. As soon as we know what's happening with Yvette Cooper, we'll let you know, but she's no longer the Foreign Secretary because Ed Miliband is. Has Lisa Nandy been sacked yet, says Richard? I hope so. I mean, what on earth was she for? She did nothing. As Burnham has outlawed shirts and lecterns, I hope he has banned the nodding dog shelf behind him in Parliament, says Rick from West Yorkshire. Well, Rick, it's interesting because Lisa Nandy is in Downing Street at the moment. She probably wouldn't be in Downing Street unless she was getting some sort of job or being reconfirmed within her job as Culture Secretary, which she has at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what happens. On the welfare point, what is the task ahead as far as you're concerned, Sean, for the Welfare Secretary, whoever that is, whether it's still Pat McFadden, whether it's Yvette Cooper, or whether it's someone else? What from a more left-wing perspective, would you expect that job to be?
Well, I think one of the things that the Pat McFadden project has been is around the crisis in youth unemployment in the country. He's I can't express to you enough how many emails I get on a weekly basis about action on NEETs that the department is doing. When it comes to what Andy Burnham, I think the theme of all of his projects kind of line up in the same way. When you're looking at how the plan for the renationalisation potentially of something like Thames Water, of the kind of going back to the old mining villages and old mining communities of the north of England, trying to get work and a kind of a sense of belonging and sense of community back into these areas. I think with someone like if it is Pat McFadden, it's Pat McFadden. If it's somebody else, it's somebody else. But I think that role is crucial in his parliament, in his government, to kind of roll out and expand the project for youth unemployment in the country.
Well, as soon as we know who the Work and Pension Secretary is, or whether Pat McFadden's staying in that role, it'll all become clear very, very soon. We'll take another break now, and in just a moment we may well have that information. As soon as I have it, you'll have it. We'll also talk a little bit about David Lammy, who's now gone as Justice Secretary, accused of a cover-up, his ministry fighting to keep migrant crime data a secret. Also, the woke council chiefs banning staff from calling people old over fears it will upset OAPs. I'm sorry, if you're old, you're old. I used to be called a young fogey. Now they just call me a fogey. Stay with us here on Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to Dave in Lancashire. He says, good evening, Cardi P. How have we got to this situation where 25,000 people decide who the Prime Minister is? This guy is a career politician who, from the sounds of it, is going to go against what people in this country want and have voted for in numerous general elections. I can't believe this once great country has fallen so low. Dave, I don't even think it's 25,000 people. All they decided was that he was going to become an MP, not that he was going to become Prime Minister. It's really 379 people out of 403 Labour MPs who've made that decision. So I think it's actually a smaller electorate even than you suggest there. And thanks for your excellent message. Neil in Stoke-on-Trent says, good evening, Peter. If, as you suggest, there will not be a Deputy Prime Minister, who would take over the weekly Prime Minister's questions? Well, certainly when it was Dominic Raab, he was Deputy Prime Minister. When it was William Hague, who was First Secretary of State, he did PMQs. So, oh no, he didn't, because he was Lord Hague, wasn't he? It's hard. I can't remember who deputised for Boris Johnson when he was away. I think it was Dominic Raab, but there will have been a couple of people. I honestly can't remember. Too many Prime Ministers. I've literally written down Andy Burnham Prime Minister in front of me. It was Dominic Raab, I'm assured. So thank you for that. Penny says Burnham was going to stop rough sleeping in Manchester, but apparently did nothing. He didn't do nothing, Penny, but he certainly didn't do enough, and it went up in the last 4 years. He needs to stop migration. These people are living in nice hotels while our own are rough sleeping, especially people who have fought for this country. It's a total disgrace. He'll be the same as the rest of them. Useless. They're just words. They don't care. They only care about lining their own pockets. Dawn says, I dealt with homelessness for a number of years. As you will know, there are many cases. Addiction is a massive factor. If it's drugs, people need to want to seek to be rehabilitated, which is costly. There's no simple solution. Dawn, you're absolutely right, and there are so many factors behind it, and it's not always about a roof over their head, although starting with a roof over people's heads is a really good idea, like they did in Finland. An excellent scheme called Housing First, which when I was in the Ministry of Housing, we did a few experiments, including in Manchester with Andy Burnham, actually, to see if it would work here. Keith in Nottingham says, I haven't seen the decorators go into number 10 yet. It won't be long before they are. Someone needs to paper over the cracks of this awful government. And Glenn in Catterick says there was only one true king of the North, and that was King Kevin Keegan. Great show, sir, says Glenn in Catterick. Before we go back to the politics, can we reflect just a little bit on the life of Kevin Keegan, a great player and a great manager? A sad day today, Joe.
A very sad day today. Obviously, originally I came from Manchester, had very strong links to it, 3 brothers who were avid fans and followers. And, of course, I grew up during that age of George Best, Kevin Keegan. Wish I could remember some others. I don't remember if you said them. Yeah, all of those. Yeah. And whilst not a great football fan myself, you know, they were integral to my childhood. And I just caught this bit of news today and I thought, that's so sad.
And such a young man as well, only 75.
I was going to say, was he not famous for the perm?
Yes,
a bit like Ryan Giggs later on, you know, the curly hair and everything. Right. And it was the kind of thing your parents were like, what does he think he looks like? You know, a bit like they did with the pop music and everything else.
A bit of a character, Kevin Keegan, Sean.
Oh yeah, I mean, like my first knowledge of Kevin Keegan was the famous video, I'd love it if we beat them. Love it.
Yes. Shall we show that again now? Shall we see that from 1996, what Kevin Keegan said?
When you do that with footballers, like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart...
I mean, he was known, of course, for a strong personality. It almost pushed Newcastle United to a Premiership title in 1996, but they were pipped to the post by Alex Ferguson's Manchester United. I've got the best possible guest on later on, Sean, which is Michael Crick, because he not only knows politics inside out as a former political editor of Newsnight, he also has written loads of books on various footballing titans, including Alex Ferguson. I don't think he wrote on Kevin Keegan, but he knows that era really, really well. But very sad news that Kevin Keegan has stage 4 cancer. That was revealed earlier this year after his family initially disclosed he was battling the disease in January. He had a further evaluation of ongoing abdominal symptoms in hospital. But what a player, what a manager, and we will be reflecting on that later on in the programme. I want to talk about another couple of articles that we've been looking at today. One about David Lamb, accused of a cover-up as his now previous ministry, the Ministry of Justice, fighting to keep migrant crime data secret. Joe, tell us a bit about this.
Oh, it's absolutely horrendous. Under an FOI, Freedom of Information request, conviction data by offenders' nationality between 2018 and 2024, it has decided, well, first of all, it's going to cost too much to actually give that breakdown. I do not believe that the department does not already have these figures, and that they would be, you know, at their fingertips if they wanted them, you know, to put them out there.
To put them out, yes.
No, it's not a good idea.
No, they've launched a legal challenge about it as well. I should say the Centre for Migration Control was after these statistics, and Rob Bates from that centre, we will talk to you a little bit later on in the programme. Sorry, Joe.
Well, can I just say, going back to Burnham and his speech today, nothing at all about migration.
He hasn't said a word.
Not a sausage.
I think I've seen basically everything he has said publicly. I'm aware of most of it, and I don't think he has uttered the word immigration.
No, I don't think he has. I've been watching you since early this morning, Peter, so, you know, obviously. But can I just say, and it won't be for the first time, I don't think, about Andy Burnham's tenure, the math ain't mathing, because he says the first thing I'm going to do as I go through that door is issue an instruction to stop homelessness. Lovely. What a fantastic idea. I hope the good fairy's on the other side. Because his own record in doing this was not fantastic. But this is then down to this devolution idea. So in Greater Manchester, 2017, 268 people sleeping homeless. Now, he initiates something called the 600 beds, a bed every night. But that wasn't enough, because in 2023 they've still got 149, and in 2025 we're back to 197. Now, if you've got 600 beds and you've got only 200 to 300 people needing them, where are the rest coming from? Now, he says, OK, because Manchester was the only place that had got this scheme, they're all coming from
other places.
You know, other places.
Yeah.
But the idea that devolution makes this simpler is not true, because you can always claim then that they're coming from somewhere else.
Yes.
And nobody actually knows what the figures are. And this is exactly the same as David Lammy and keeping this migrant crime data secret. And it's, you know, we are going through the absolutely horrendous situation with Anne Widdecombe, you know.
We'll just be very careful, because there has been a charge in that case as well. But this is the news that the Ministry of Justice has launched a legal challenge to prevent the publication of detailed crime statistics on foreign nationals, setting up a confrontation over transparency, privacy and the public's right to access official data. The department, which was until today led by David Lammy, appealing a ruling by the Information Commissioner's Office that ordered it to reconsider a Freedom of Information request seeking conviction data by offenders' nationality between 2018 and 2024. Sean, what do you think of this?
It's a strange one, isn't it? I mean, the defence was that there's already data sets that the Ministry have published that can be looked at rather than it going through an FOI. And considering that the request was a large-scale, sweeping request of everything between ages, nationalities, crimes committed, and then from that, the defence being, well, if you collate all of these together, you're bound to, as an outlet, get something wrong at some point. Give us specifics and we'll give them out to you. That would take more time, I would think. And so giving everyone the entire data set will probably...
Because you'll know, I'm sure you've put Freedom of Information requests in as a journalist, they love denying them. They love saying it takes too long, there are too many bits of information, it would take too much manpower to do this. And really within this, to a degree, appears to be an argument about manpower and data sets and getting it right, but actually it's... Many people would argue it's fundamental over transparency. What do you think?
Oh, no, it is fundamental over transparency. But the point I'm making is that usually, in my experience, it's been the specificity of the request that makes things difficult for the ministries to action them, because it takes too much time, too much manpower. But this being a large-scale sweeping thing, it feels like you can just go into whatever folder you've got on the computer and send it all in.
Just to tell you, Yvette Cooper is now the Health Secretary, so James Murray is out. Maybe he'll go somewhere else, but he's only been there for a number of weeks because we know that Wes Streeting resigned. Pat McFadden remains as Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, so he is in the Welfare Department still. Pat McFadden is there, but Yvette Cooper, the Health Secretary, she has been demoted from Foreign Secretary, gone to Health now, and still in Downing Street, as much as we know at the moment, is Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillipson and Lucy Powell. So they're all having a nice cup of tea before they get the meeting with the Prime Minister. But the breaking news is that Yvette Cooper's the Health Secretary, Pat McFadden, the Work and Pension Secretary. So we've got a number of the top team of Andy Burnham forming. We've got 6 cabinet appointments. John Healey is the Chancellor, Ed Miliband is Foreign Secretary, Shamana Mahmood remaining Home Secretary, Louise Haigh is the First Secretary of State, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. It's a complicated role, but it's a powerful one and an important one. Yvette Cooper is the Health Secretary, and Pat McFadden remains for Work and Pensions. They came out of Downing Street a little bit earlier on. Big problems for Yvette Cooper, certainly, to deal with. But are you surprised Pat McFadden has stayed where he is, Joe?
I'm not hugely surprised. I think what has been very clear throughout the day is that the people who are being assembled together are not the people that Keir Starmer favoured. You know, as well as not mentioning immigration, you know, in his speech today, he didn't mention Starmer either. Yeah. And
although he has on a number of occasions previously, including on Friday when he became Labour leader. So
yeah, not today, which perhaps you know for many people was the the one bit. Come on then, tell us what you're about to do.
Yes.
And since then we've seen all of his allies vanish, which personally I think is probably quite a good thing. But I was about to throw the question back at you. Do you get the feeling that Burnham is literally just wiping the slate clean?
Yeah, I think he is. It's interesting because he talked about not wanting factionalism, but a lot of those people are his people. Louise Haigh, for example, Annalise Midgley, Angela Rayner, they're sort of Burnham people through and through, and people who, there are always people at the top of politics who wouldn't have jobs unless the person who's the Prime Minister was Prime Minister. I would argue Darren Jones, Joe Stephens, Lord Hermer certainly were in that position. Steve Reid, I mean, he was one of the biggest Starmer loyalists. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticising it. I'm simply saying that when you have new personnel, you're going to have different people there. Just a quick reaction from you, Sean, on these new appointments on Yvette Cooper and Pat McFadden, and then I want to talk about woke words, which I know you're looking forward to.
I love woke me. The interesting thing for me is that I think the pool is getting smaller and smaller for someone like Wes Streeton. I mean, it was rumoured,
very good point.
Rumoured last week, or it was last week, wasn't it? The end of last week, that Wes Streeton was seen in Westminster crying.
He wasn't. He wasn't.
Well,
he was in Wales at the time, so he actually tweeted about it and said, of all the crazy rumours he's heard about himself, he was actually in Wales. He wasn't in the House of Parliament, but he said he hoped his doppelganger was okay. We'll see where Wes Streeting ends up, if anywhere. On the thought of woke words, which I know Sean is very anxious to talk about, this is one of the most elderly parts of the UK. Has told staff not to use the word old for fear of offending OAPs. Barred words include the elderly, old, young, and millennials, which is just the generational term for people born between 1981 and 1996. I mean, I am a millennial. That is basically a fact. The diversity bosses wrote, it's usually unnecessary to refer to people using age-related descriptors. Think about it first. Older people, younger people, we're not allowed to say mentally ill, sick person, fireman or firewoman, and ladies. So we're to avoid medical labels and reinforce stereotypes of disabled people or patients as unwell. We're to use neutral, non-gendered terms for professions, avoid patronising language. I mean, I find it pretty patronising. I don't know about you, Joe. I find it pretty patronising to be told, don't call an old person old.
I think it's desperately patronising. They're saying call them older or younger than what?
Yes, than what.
I mean,
exactly.
Sorry, I had an English teacher who would walk around with a 12-inch ruler heading for your knuckles if you wrote things like that. Than what?
Yes.
You know, OK, fair enough, I can see that they've had to take the word pensioner out because pensions are edging further and further up the, the decades.
Doesn't necessarily mean that you're a certain age,
No, absolutely not. And you can talk about somebody who's older. This is New Forest District Council, just in case you want to know who it is.
Yes, indeed.
Where their average age of resident is 52. I know of several places where the average age is a lot older than that. And, nobody's so rude as to say they're a load of elderly pensioners
indeed.
Whatever. And ultimately, there are many people who are very fit and able,
yes,
in their 60s, 70s, 80s.
I'll say younger person on the debate desk.
Youngest, actually.
Youngest in the studio. I'm sorry to say. Sean, what do you make of this?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that it's marketed as woke gone mad, but the council itself is led by the Conservatives. So it's usually not
Conservatives can be woke too.
It's good to see. It's a relief to see that it's broadening out. It's not the loony left, as some people like to call it anymore. It's also the Conservatives.
I know we're running out of time. I think more focus should be put on the fact that they're asking people to use smartphones in car parks, and people of a certain age can't do that.
Yeah, well, some can and some can't, but yes, there are some.
It's an issue.
There are some silver surfers. So there we are. Thank you both very much indeed to Sean and to Joe. Lots more to discuss. Bring you right up to date on the reshuffle in just a second as well. 0344 499 1000 to react to it too. Stay with us here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell and Andy Burnham is the Prime Minister. Keir Starmer has gone off to some form of political retirement anyway. He's still an MP, but not the Prime Minister. We know as well that John Healey is the Chancellor, Ed Miliband, the Foreign Secretary. Shabana Mahmood stays as the Home Secretary and Pat McFadden staying in his department as well, working pensions. We know that Yvette Cooper is now the Health Secretary. What happens to James Murray? Unclear. And Louise Hay is the First Secretary of State. In Downing Street right now, we can see the live shot there. If you're watching on the screen, Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, a little-known MP, but a very, very close ally of Andy Burnham, Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, and Lucy Powell, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. As soon as we know what roles they have been given, we will tell you. We'll get reaction from Labour, from the Conservatives. We'll hear from Reform as well. But there's Yvette Cooper, the Health Secretary. She is going to that department tonight. She's never run it before. She has been the Work and Pension Secretary. I thought she might have gone there. Lots to discuss in all of that. Also, a momentous day in sport as well. The very sad death of Kevin Keegan, a brilliant England and indeed he played for many clubs, most closely associated of course with Manchester United and Newcastle United and Liverpool as well. A 50-year career as a player and manager and pundit as well. He leaves a legacy few can match. We'll talk about his career with a political and football expert in about half an hour's time. So much to discuss in the meantime, and I want to get your calls on the air too. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter, or you can follow me on Instagram at CardwellPeter. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, you can send me a WhatsApp voice note, or you can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with me here in the Evening Exchange. It's a momentous evening. Things are moving all the time. As soon as we know who's going to actually run the country in those big government departments, we'll let you know. Stay with us. Well, Starmer left earlier. This is what he had to say about Burnham.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support.
That is what Starmer said shortly before going to Buckingham Palace. I was there. I've been in Downing Street for most of today. Then Burnham came from the palace where he was appointed Prime Minister by King Charles, and Andy Burnham had this to say about what he would do as Prime Minister.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around, and that's why we will change politics.
That is the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. He's now in Downing Street, and with him those six, I think there are four people who are actually Secretaries of State or have been, and two who are not, and it'll be interesting to see what they emerge out of that door with Yvette Cooper becoming the Health Secretary and Pat McFadden remaining at Work and Pensions, the most recent one. Lisa Nandy is one of those people in. She is the Culture Secretary, or maybe she's not still the Culture Secretary. The Digital Minister, James Frith, joins us now. James, thank you for joining me, Labour MP and Digital Minister. Glad to have you on the programme. What do you make of the reshuffle so far?
Good to be with you, Peter. Well, it's a good reshuffle. I think the appointment of John Healey as Chancellor is one that is most welcome. He is a safe pair of hands. He's a man on a mission, clarity of purpose. He's very well regarded by parliamentary colleagues, but most of all, he knows the significance of an industrial plan and creating and bringing jobs to towns that I represent in Bury and Ramsbottom and Radcliffe, and why it's so important to have that plan and to make sure the cost of living crisis is tackled, as well as the prospects for our young people as well.
It's interesting because Andy Burnham has talked about some of the biggest changes in 4 decades of politics. He's talked about political and economic shifts. He's talked about wanting to change things from the 1980s. Now we have a Chancellor who has talked about 3% of what the country makes of GDP going into defence. How are we going to pay for all this? Surely taxes will have to go up.
Well, look, we need to grow the economy, of course, but John, I would expect, will lead the national conversation that we have to have about defence. And it's right that that happens ahead of a budget in the autumn, which John will preside over now. But I think the security of our nation and the people in it is the first and last priority of any government. It is the beginning and end of any purpose is to keep people safe, and it's right, it's welcome that at a time of heightened global conflict, the risks posed by foreign states and state interference, that we've a Chancellor now who knows firsthand through being, as his time as Defence Secretary, the challenges and the threat. And we've got to take and build on the reputation that Keir Starmer re-established on the global stage, and ensure that whether it's through partners in the coalition of the willing, our support for Ukraine, or our role as an ally to the American president and America, that our Chancellor lays out a plan to pay for the increase in budget that we need to allocate to defence.
It's interesting you mentioned about Keir Starmer. He said he had a reputation globally when it came to defence. He was given the Legion d'Honneur. He was given a big honour by Ukraine as well. But one person who was just not impressed with that was John Healey. John Healey resigned as Defence Secretary and has come back. It is an extraordinary turn of events. You talk about the need for security in the country, and I'm sure, you know, Keir Starmer, absolutely a patriot, cared about the defence of this country. I don't dispute that, but he wasn't willing to go as far as John Healey wanted him to go, and that arguably led to his downfall. It is nothing if not an extraordinary turn of events that the person whose resignation was key to the Prime Minister eventually resigning is now the second most important person in the country, is it not?
Well, we live in extraordinary times, and these are extraordinary events. I think there's a consistency actually there, that somebody who has concerns about how we fund our defence is now responsible for doing exactly that. And I look forward to playing my part and the support as a parliamentary colleague to the vision and the economic plan that John Healey will now outline in the autumn budget. But it is a conversation we've got to have with the country about our security and the threat that we experience.
Okay. Your boss, if I'm correct, was Liz Kendall, the Science Secretary. Is that correct?
So I'm across two departments.
You're two departments.
Cabinet Office in Darren Jones, and Liz Kendall at Department of Science, Innovation, Technology, both of whom left the government today.
Yeah, both have been sacked today. Will the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, will that be abolished, do you think? Is that your understanding?
That's not my knowledge at all. We await news of that. I think I did ask that, a more senior colleague that from the Conservative Party earlier today. Is it customary to let the machinery of government changes happen in day two, effectively? Us Labour MPs are a lot newer to this than some of our Conservative colleagues, and I'm assured that any announcements on machinery of government and department changes will come day two. So we would expect to learn tomorrow, but it's nothing I've learned of. There's obviously speculation. Actually, mostly junior ministers like myself are as up to date if we're paying attention to news channels, as opposed to having anything insightful.
So often the way in government. When it comes to what Andy Burnham said on Friday, he said he wanted factionalism to end. He wanted factionalism to not be part of what he did and what the Labour Party was. I mean, he just got rid of Nick Thomas, Simmons, Darren Jones, one of your old bosses, Lord Hermer, Baroness Chapman, Steve Reid. I mean, they are all of the Starmer faction. Do you think factionalism actually has ended?
I don't think that's fair. I think there is there's a natural changing of the guard that happens, and by extension of that, the cabinet top table have either decided to leave of their own accord and resigned, or they've been asked to leave the government and thanked for their service. That is somewhat priced in this world of work.
Yeah, but when you look at the people who've left and you look at the people who've come in, for example, Louise Haig and Annalise Midgley, I mean, they are nothing if not factional Burnham loyalists.
I mean, I don't think they're factional. I think if you can be I mean, I was in Makerfield. I don't belong to a faction as such. And Andy himself talked of having supported successive Labour leaders.
I mean, Louise Haig told the BBC that she had planned for a year to get rid of Keir Starmer.
Well, you need to speak to Louise on that.
But what is that if not I'm not asking you to speak for her. I'm simply saying, what is that if not factionalism?
Well, I think there's political discourse for sure, and people can have opinions and views for many, many months before anything may or may not be acted on. Do I think it's factionalism? Possibly, but in truth, I think it's natural that the government of the day, the cabinet, that, of course, is appointed by the Prime Minister, that it's right that they would bring in their top team. I think that's what this is in truth. I appreciate the term factionalism, and Andy himself has spoken to it. He's right to want to build a government of the talents. That cabinet is not complete yet. The government is not a complete pack yet. I think by the end of it, he'll be true to his word. It'll be a government of all the talents. Keeping an eye on your phone, James? I've been asked that a few times. I think it'll be Wednesday close of play before anybody of my ranking is needing to be called for whatever reason. As I'm sure you know, when Downing Street rings you, it says number withheld or no number, or caller number withheld, no caller ID, whatever it is. And that's the same as when they ring you to tell you that you may have been involved in an accident that wasn't your fault. So it could be either one of the two. What would you like to do? Look, it's been an absolute honour. I've only been in the government for 3.5 months. It's been an honour to serve in Keir Starmer's government. It was quite the moment to get that phone call then, and that was not during a kind of nationwide reshuffle that we're in at the moment. It was quite an experience, and I would love to continue. I'm getting to grips with what the job of a minister is. I have a huge amount of faith in store for Andy, not least as a fellow Greater Manchester MP, and it's great to hear him set out his vision today. But look, these decisions, there's not always much logic or much science to some of these decisions, so I'm not getting too carried away. I'm looking forward to getting home tomorrow and a constituency day, which includes my little girls leaving primary school service. So that's my priority for tomorrow. That's your priority, and rightly so. Just before you go, James, I know you're an MP in Bury North. Yep. That may bode well, because Tony in Lincolnshire, he's one of our texters, had texted in and says, "Hello, Peter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but has every position in the cabinet so far been a northern constituency MP with no MP below the Midlands? If true, that can't be a coincidence. Ed Miliband, John Healey, Shabana Mahmood, Louise Haig, Yvette Cooper and Pat McFadden, they're all above the Midlands." Yeah, the problem is, Peter, the inner monologue never looks at the half glass full. It always thinks in half glass empty. So I'm immediately thinking that probably discount me because of being too close to Greater Manchester. Look, these things. I mean, your viewers are absolutely right to try and to pore over some of the rationale of this. Often there isn't much rationale to a reshuffle. Often, but. I mean, that list of colleagues at cabinet level is brilliant, and I think there's a real sense of purpose to Andy's first few hours as PM, and you know, I just hope to be able to play a part, if only as the Labour MP for Bury North. I expect, and I'm not complimenting you, I'm simply saying as a statement of fact, and as I understand the Labour Party, I would expect you to be a member of the government this time in 48 hours' time, and please do come back when you're in that role and join us in the programme again. That's James Frith there. Thank you. call you up and complain at you if it's not true, Peter. Okay.
And rightly so. That's James Frith, the Labour MP there, who, for the moment anyway, is the Digital Government Minister. Ed Miliband has said the Foreign Office is going to be at the forefront of issues which pose profound and substantial threats to justice and equality in Britain and across the world under his stewardship. He says it's a great honour and privilege to be appointed by the Prime Minister to serve as Foreign Secretary. Ed Miliband said, "My parents came to Britain as Jewish refugees from the Nazis. To them, Britain was both a sanctuary and a beacon of hope in the global fight against fascism. I will carry out my parents' faith in that spirit of Britain to my role representing our country. I will be a Foreign Secretary who fights for Britain's interests and our values of democracy, freedom and the rule of law on the world stage." He promised to maintain close ties with the EU, the United States and uphold Britain's commitments to NATO and the United Nations. He added, "The Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office I lead will also be at the forefront of issues which pose profound and substantial threats to justice and equality in Britain and across the world. We will work with others on tackling the climate crisis." There we are. He, of course, has just been Net Zero and Energy Security Secretary. No longer. He's the Foreign Secretary. Big promotion for him, although not the Chancellor position that he wanted. He said, "We will work with others in tackling the climate crisis, strengthening our partnerships for international development and reforming our international institutions so they deliver for all countries, including the world's poorest people." We'll get some of your reaction in just a second. Give me a ring, 0344 499 1000. I'll read out some messages too. However you want to communicate, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who's been in touch, including David in the Cotswolds, who says Burnham thinks he's a Labour man of the 90s entering this new era, but actually he sounds like a Labour man from the 70s wanting to return there. More tax, more uncontrolled spending and mortgage rates heading to 12%. David, I've got a mortgage. If mortgage rates go to 12%, I mean, it will not be a good thing, certainly, says David. Thank you very, very much. Max says, I'm a nurse in an older adults community mental health team. Given they don't want us to refer to old people or use the word mental health, I think we could end up becoming nameless, says Max. That's in the one particular council area anyway. Thank you to Steve, who says, so basically Burnham has moved a few inept people about and brought in more inept people to replace the really inept people. Penny in Essex says, I think the word pensioner is horrible. In Australia, people when they're older are called seniors, which is nice, says Penny. That's certainly how they often refer to people in America as well, as seniors. So that is a better word, I think. Laura Jane has given me a ring in from Hampshire. Laura Jane, you're very welcome to the programme. I know Kevin sadly couldn't fit you in, but you're very welcome to speak to me. What's on your mind?
It's not what I was going to speak to Kevin about because it was a little bit facetious, and I'll give it for him to keep it for tomorrow. What I wanted to talk to you about was our first Catholic Prime Minister. And if you wouldn't mind me just giving you a quick history lesson, the Irish lawyer Daniel O'Connell in 1823, he organised Catholics into a massive political force to force the British government to address their civil rights.
Yeah, of course. Whereupon,
1828, he wins a parliamentary seat in a by-election.
Yes.
But he refused to take the anti-Catholic oath. So then the Prime Minister of the day, who was the Duke of Wellington, had to pass the Emancipation Act to prevent a revolt in Ireland, which, you know, all of this we know. And then, of course, we had the 1829 Act, which allowed Catholics to become MPs. Fast forward to 2026, and our first Catholic Prime Minister, he must be about to have a conflict of interest, to my mind, being a Roman Catholic, as you know, because he would be in charge of appointing bishops and archbishops and such like, and advising the king, who is obviously the head of the Church of England. So I find this quite an interesting...
Well, there's another interesting element to it, Laura Jane, which is that Boris Johnson is recognised as a Catholic under canon law, the law of the Catholic Church, because he was baptised into the Roman Catholic faith as an infant. He converted to the Church of England when he was at Eton. He entered office as an Anglican, but maintained ties to the Catholic Church. And when he married his wife, Carrie Simons, in a Catholic ceremony at Westminster Cathedral in 2021, he was recognised as a Catholic there, Laura Jane. And actually, when it comes to, there's one weird bit I know, because I used to work for Sir Robert Buckland, who was the Justice Secretary. He was the one who advised the King on these appointments, because Boris Johnson was seen as a Catholic at that stage. So he may not have been like 100% in the same way as Andy Burnham is. So your point stands to some degree, but there's at least an element of Catholicism. We remember Tony Blair as well, after being Prime Minister, after leaving office, he converted to Catholicism too.
Yes, I mean, you have got a point, but I think that Boris Johnson did consider himself a part of the Anglican Church until I think probably nudged by his fiancée into, that was the only way they were going to get married in a Catholic church, was for him to say, well, actually, I was baptised a Catholic.
Yes.
So once a Catholic, always a Catholic.
There is a very good play called Once a Catholic. Just before we go on with this conversation, just to let you know the very important news that Larry the Cat is currently on the screen. He is just outside the number 10 door. It looks as if he's about to sit down. He's on the little step there as well. Axel, the dog, the rescue dog that belongs to Andy Burnham, still TBC. Within minutes of the programme starting, I had a message from one of Burnham's people saying that Axel may or may not, still TBC, that he goes to Downing Street. But Laura Jane, I think we can all agree that Andy Burnham is a very different type of Prime Minister for some reasons anyway, not least his faith.
Yes. By the way, the cat is sitting there in case Angela Rayner comes out, and he just wants to avoid her vape, because it's not good for cats and animals to be living with people who vape. Anyway, aside from that, yes, it is an interesting point of view, and I just, you know, as a Roman Catholic, I find it quite interesting. His children went to Catholic schools. He, you know, it is important to him in that sense. But you know, we'll see. I think probably it was very clever to appoint John Healey. If we want to change the subject a little bit, I think that's an incredibly clever move.
I think it's very politically sound. I've got to go to another call, Laura Jane, but just before I go, I think just get a final word from you, because if we think about it, we've had Boris Johnson, sort of a Catholic, certainly recognised by the Catholic Church when he got married. We've had a Hindu Prime Minister in Rishi Sunak. We've had an atheist Prime Minister in Keir Starmer. Now we've got a Catholic. Doesn't it say, you know, you're talking about Daniel O'Connell there back in the day when religion was so incredibly important. Doesn't it say quite a lot about our country that a lot of those things barely raised an eyebrow in terms of the Prime Ministers and their faith? It's something we're talking about now because it's interesting, and you've given me some really interesting thoughts on the call. But isn't it a good thing that we can change? We're not so tied to religion in the same way as we were previously.
except if anybody wants to marry Prince George, they will have to renounce their Catholic faith.
Well, that's a whole other topic. We'll talk about that soon. Again, I'm sure, Laura Jane, thank you for your thoughts on that. Matt in Cheshire has some thoughts on Andy Burnham. Matt, any bigger fan of Andy Burnham than of Keir Starmer?
No, it's pretty similar at the same stage. The fact you've just told me Keir Starmer is an atheist, I've never wanted to commit to religion more since I heard that.
Well, I was told there was a very interesting man who I'm fairly sure was one of the ones who was shouting about Jesus coming soon into Downing Street today as Andy Burnham was talking. He carries sandwich board and all the rest of it. And he came on one evening, Ken in London, he's a bit of a legendary caller to the station, and told me that I hated God because I'm agnostic, and Keir Starmer hated God because every atheist hates God. I don't hate God. I'm just sort of fairly ambivalent on God, it must be said.
Yeah, me too. I'm fairly similar, sort of half an atheist. But now you've told me Keir Starmer is in my camp, I'm going to go. I'm off to
Mass,
Vatican City in the morning. You know.
Yes. I once joked with one of my previous producers that I wanted the Pope on, and she said, "How on earth am I going to get the Pope?" I said, "Beth, are you a Vatican or a Vaticant?"
That's a typical Pete.
I'm afraid so. What's on your mind, Matt? Tell me your thoughts on today.
The parading up and down Downing Street like it's a summer fashion show, and they've just won a gigantic summer general election and a huge majority. Nobody voted for Andy Burnham. Nobody's going to see him for 40-odd days. This is like a Klaus Schwab coup where we're having a leader imposed on us by a foreign institution or a foreign body or something.
I mean, he's been chosen by the Labour Party, but it's a pretty small electorate. 379 people actually voted for him to be Labour leader. The people of Makerfield didn't even vote for him to be Prime Minister, just their MP.
That thing where they announced him was like a Soviet show trial where they announced a winner out of one person. It's ridiculous, Peter.
And what do you think of his Politburo? He's got Louise Haigh there, convicted fraudster. He's got John Healey as the Chancellor, Ed Miliband as the Foreign Secretary. Do you know what? To be a fly on the wall, Matt, in the first meeting between Ed Miliband and Donald Trump, I just think would be so much fun.
John Healey is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this bargain, Peter. He's masking a lot of sins. He'll bring a lot of the old people that Starmer got rid of, like Rayner, probably Rebecca Long-Bailey will come in.
Oh, please no! I don't think I have the strength for Rebecca Wrong-Daly, to be a government minister.
Howell will be back. Rayner will be back. It's the same.
Well, they're in Downing Street at the moment, Matt. We've got Rayner Reynolds, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillipson, and Lucy Powell, all in Downing Street at the moment. We'll find out before too long what their rules are. No doubt we'll talk more about that. Matt, listen, thanks for your call. Always good to talk to you. Thanks to an anonymous texter who wants to remain anonymous, and I'm happy to respect that because of the nature of what the person has said. I'm very close to our bank managers. We have a great business relationship. Over 21 years, we've been through 3 major floods that closed our town for months. We've had COVID, then Ukraine. They tell me personally that they're very concerned about the situation with the Burnham government at the moment. Debbie says, does Larry have a job in the cabinet yet? Doesn't. I think he remains as chief mouser. That's my information anyway. Alison says, I think Larry's been summoned now for Burnham's top appointment. Will Burnham decide if it's Whiskers or Felix, says Alison. Bob says, I'm not a Labour supporter, but so far Burnham's appointments are smart. However, do we need to require qualifications for positions like Chancellor? Must they have significant economic qualifications? For health, one needs significant medical experience. Qualifications happens in the private sector. Why do mates get in as government ministers? Well, it's a fair point, and actually in America we often find that people have huge experience in housing or in economics or whatever. That's not the way it works in this country, and they're there to make the political decisions rather than the operational decisions, although they set the strategy. It's a system that doesn't always work, but a lot of countries have it. Patrick in Nottingham says, does that mean Miliband will have to deal with Trump now as Foreign Secretary? Yes. Oh dear, says Patrick, which I think we can all agree with. Martin in Lichfield, I'll come to that in a second. Oh no, two more on Larry. Martin in Lichfield says, you can see Larry the cat sitting there thinking, I wonder how long this one will last. Honestly, I don't know where to begin. What a day. That's Martin in Lichfield. And thank you to Margaret in Birmingham, who says, Larry has been the star of the show. What a star. People are taking photographs of him. Brilliant. Yes, I saw Larry earlier today. He's definitely getting on a little bit. He's 19 years old now, but he is still a star and on his 7th Prime Minister. We will go to someone who's seen quite a few Prime Ministers in his time as well, Michael Crick, the political journalist. Michael Crick is an author as well and knows a heck of a lot about football, and Kevin Keegan. In fact, Michael's literally written the book on Manchester United, Alex Ferguson and many other parts of Manchester United's history. So we'll speak to Michael about that and the politics. He's a sort of Swiss Army knife guest. We'll speak to him in just a second, so stay with us here on Talk and make sure you get your call in as well. Plenty of time between now and the end of the programme to make your views on the new government clear. We'll give you every update that we get on what's happening. Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillips and Lucy Powell still in 10 Downing Street at 32 minutes past 8. Loads to discuss and a report on between now and 10. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh. I think there's some sort of problem. I think there is somebody who's not taking the job that they are being offered. I wonder if it's Angela Rayner, because there have been 6 people in Downing Street now for quite a while. I think nearly an hour, actually, at least 45 minutes anyway, since they've announced any appointment. And as soon as we know what those appointments are, I will let you know. Michael Crick is with me now, the political journalist. We're going to talk about Kevin Keegan in a second. But Michael, do you think my instinct might be right? 45 minutes without an appointment. We've got 6 people in. Angela Rayner, who may not be happy with what she's being offered. Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillips and Lucy Powell. You've been through quite a number of these, as have I, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's somebody somewhere who's not happy.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, I suppose part of the thing today is that that Burnham isn't just appointing these people; he's telling them what they've got to do.
Yes,
he's making it clear that he's in charge, and you've got to carry out these policies, rather than saying you're in charge now, go away and work out what to do with your field. So those kind of meetings would take slightly longer, but you can see how Angela Rayner might be unhappy if, for instance, she's offered her old job of housing and so on, because she was Deputy Prime Minister as well as that at the time under Starmer. So she's getting what she had before, but less. But what else can she have? And she'll also feel she deserves something because, of course, she very early on made it clear that she thought it was wrong of the Labour Party National Executive, as told by Starmer, should have prevented Andy Burnham from being standing as the Labour candidate in Gorton and Denton in that by-election in February. So, yeah, it could be a big bust up there. As for Larry, by the way, where the cameras just loomed in, I mean, presumably he should have been purged today, surely, by Burnham, because he's been very loyal to Starmer. He's not said a word against him, as far as
very true, or any of the other 6 prime ministers. It would be great to have his memoir. But there we are. 6 people in Downing Street at the moment. We'll continue the political chat in a second with Michael. And if anything happens, forgive me for interrupting you, Michael. Just to say, if we get any news through, I will let it be known. But I'd like to ask you about Kevin Keegan, because after a 50-year career as a player, a manager and a pundit, he leaves a legacy few can match. Famously, the only English player to win the Ballon d'Or twice in 78 and 79. What would you say, it's very sad that he has died today at the age of 75, what were the defining moments, highlights of his career, do you think, Michael?
Well, I remember back in 1971 when I was, 13, and Keegan came to Liverpool from Scunthorpe, and he had a great first season, very exciting attacking forward player, lots of goals, and he really played a huge role in the success. And I say this as a Manchester United fan, so I wish it hadn't happened. The success of Liverpool winning the league several times in the 70s with Keegan in the side, and then, of course, the European Cup for the first time in 1977 before he went off to Hamburg. In Germany, that's where he won the Ballon d'Or, the European Footballers of the Year. But then he came later on in his career. He also was hugely successful with the Newcastle team of the mid-90s, who played again very attacking, a lot of flair, very exciting football, and very nearly won the league in 1997. Only we, Manchester United, beat them to it famously. They were 12 points ahead. And we gradually caught them up, and Kevin Keegan was caught on camera with his earphones saying, if we beat them, it would be... I can't remember the precise words.
Let's watch that.
Very rattled. You've got it. Great.
Let's watch that exact clip right now. This is, I think, 1996, pipped to the post by Alex Ferguson's Manchester United, and this clip was aimed at Alex Ferguson, one of Keegan's most iconic moments. Let's take a look.
When you do that with footballers, like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart Pearce...
Such a passionate person. He loved what he did.
I know. Unfortunately for him, we, Manchester United, did go to Middlesbrough. I was there, and we won 3-1, and we won the league. And poor old Kevin Keegan didn't win the league, although, frankly, he deserved to, because that was a great Newcastle side he had at the time. Less successful it was his time with England about 10 years later, when he actually ended up with the worst win record, I think, of any England manager, certainly up until that point. But a great character. And then I came across him, it's only about a year ago, actually, funnily enough, at a meeting at the House of Commons, chaired by Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham. And this is on a campaign called Family Justice, Football Families for Justice, all about the issue of dementia in professional football and the huge damage it's done to lots and lots of professional players. 4.5 times as many, you're 4.5 times more likely to die with dementia if you're a footballer. And Keegan was there, very outspoken about how hopeless the football authorities had been at giving help to those footballers and such families. He died of cancer himself, he didn't, as far as I'm aware, he didn't have dementia himself, but he was absolutely passionate about the issue. And I hugely admired him for that and wanted him to come to the meeting.
I seem to remember a news story recently about Nobby Stiles, who was, because he had headed a ball so often on a very heavy ball, that had had a major effect on him as well. So that was presumably one of the people who both Andy Burnham and indeed Kevin Keegan were fighting for.
Well, indeed, it's Nobby Stiles' son, John Stiles, who was himself a professional footballer, although at a lower level than his father, who actually runs this campaign. He's a friend of mine. In fact, I'm involved in a very small way. I should declare an interest, really. But I'm hoping that this is something that Burnham can take action on in government, and it's something he can do without spending any money. If he makes the people who run football get the big clubs who are rolling in money to devote more money to football players who for help when they get dementia, and then for help for their families if they die of it.
Let's talk a little bit more about Kevin Keegan's playing career. England, of course, just reached the semi-finals. They came third overall in the World Cup. Best World Cup performance since winning in 1966. Keegan famously captained England back in the 70s and 80s, managed them between 1999 and 2000. Where does he rank in the list of all-time England greats, do you think?
Well, I think he only played about 30 times for England. And those were the years when England, in 74 and 78, England failed to qualify for the World Cup, which was an absolute disaster. They weren't in the World Cup for a gap of 12 years. And that was pretty much Keegan's playing career. I'm not blaming him, of course, but I think he will be remembered for his club work as a club man, really. With Liverpool as a player, he was a huge factor in Liverpool's success in the 70s. Then later on at Newcastle in the 90s, and he returned subsequently to Newcastle as well, but that was less successful. But I think it will be Newcastle fans tonight and Liverpool fans who are really mourning him, but also those of us who just love exciting attacking players who score lots of goals and are entertainers, really, a showman on the field. And that is what football is all about: entertainment, showmanship, and lots of attacking play and lots of goals.
Kevin Keegan, who's died at the age of 75. Michael Crick, you are the Swiss Army knife of guests on this programme, so we'll go back to the politics, having tapped into your amazing football knowledge as well. Yvette Cooper, the new Health Secretary, she has just said it's been a real honour to be appointed Health Secretary. 27 years after I worked on the first NHS cancer plan as a junior health minister. She said, I'm looking forward to working urgently to improve maternity services, to take forward plans for social care, and to once again play a part in supporting our National Health Service, Labour's proudest achievement. Most of all, I'm looking forward to working with the dedicated NHS staff, carers, healthcare professionals and volunteers upon whom we defend. In leaving the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, let me pay tribute to the brilliant diplomats and ministers I worked with at the Foreign Office, and to my fellow foreign ministers from across the world for all the work we did together to support Ukraine, to recognise the state of Palestine, to keep the spotlight on Sudan, and to treat violence against women and girls as a global crisis it is. The partnerships we build abroad make us stronger at home. Yvette Cooper is one of the big demotions. There have been a lot of sackings, of course, in this cabinet. She's a big demotion. What do you think her political future is? Some talked of her as a future Labour leader. She entered the contest, of course, against Andy Burnham, actually, in 2015. So she remains as an important person in charge of a huge budget. But what do you make of her move today, Michael?
Well, I think, health is nonetheless a big job.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a much bigger job under Burnham, because Burnham is determined to do something about provision of social care and the cost of social care in this country. And if I were Yvette Cooper, I would concentrate on that side of the responsibilities rather than the health side, although the health side is hugely important, but simply because this does need to be resolved, and Burnham seems to have the political will to resolve it.
It's interesting that you're right, and of course he's a former health secretary himself under Gordon Brown, and the social care aspect is something that the Liberal Democrats already have said that they want to work with him on. Do you think he can persuade the Conservatives and Reform UK to work with him, maybe get a global Royal Commission or something together on it?
Well, maybe, but I'm not sure we need yet another review. There have been so many reviews, and of course, what happened when Burnham did it before in 2009 is his proposals were described as a death tax, and of course that's ends up being the death of the policy. And then of course there were similar criticisms of Theresa May when she came up with her schemes. And unless there's cross-party consensus, and unless people can be persuaded not to use those kind of inflammatory words that are trying to destroy a policy, then you're not going to get the cross-party consensus. But Burnham has got the majority easily in the House of Commons to bring in reform, particularly if the Lib Dems are willing to back it too. But where's the money coming from? Yeah. Is there a way of doing it without a huge extra expense? And is there going to have to be some form of extra additional payment at some point, perhaps on inheritance tax or something like that? But a real conundrum. And of course, Yvette Cooper being a former Treasury Minister will also be good with the numbers. So the other thing, of course, is that Ed Miliband has now got the job that a few days ago everybody was saying that David Miliband was going to get. And for the second, what's dinner going to be like in the Miliband household if they ever bother to meet again?
Well,
it's
indeed.
the second time you've taken the job that I was meant to get.
Yes. David Miliband, the only person who's ever left politics to spend less time with his family. John Healey as Chancellor, did you see that one coming, Michael?
Well, actually, I should have. It actually makes sense, really, because Healey has worked in the Treasury, although he's been very critical of it. And now, of course, the question is, will he find the money, the £5 billion that he was arguing the Defence Department needed only a few weeks ago and was the cause of his resignation? Or is he going to be run from Downing Street? And I suspect it may largely be the latter. I think that this is going to be a very centralised government ironic, really, when Burnham claims to be very devolved
yes.
when it comes to everything else. But it's going to be a very centralised government, and I think a lot of power could reside, and we don't know they've been appointed yet, with Jim O'Neill, the former Goldman Sachs banker who was a minister actually under George Osborne in the Cameron years, although he's always told me he's never been a Conservative, and I think he's more Labour inclined. And he's got all sorts of exciting ideas about how you might get round the fiscal rules, and of course was heavily involved in the devolution in Manchester and programmes for the North. And then, of course, Andy Haldane, the former chief economist of the Bank of England, is also rumoured to be getting some kind of job in the Burnham regime, Downing Street based perhaps, or maybe at the Treasury. So those will be two key players, and they're the sort of people that can reassure the markets. Another interesting point about Healey is in the 90s, he spent 5 years working for a major trade union and then for the TUC. So the unions will probably be quite pleased with his appointment, particularly if given that Ed Miliband's not going there, and the big ones were worried about him and North Sea and so on. And also that will quite please people on the left in the party. There don't seem to be any real left-wing appointments yet, new people, but it's early days. And
well, Louise Haigh, maybe. Louise Haig's pretty much on the left as well, that's probably the main one.
That's true. That's true.
And maybe Miliband herself,
Annalise Midgley's
yeah, she's still in Downing Street, almost exactly an hour since the last announcement. We'll keep people updated. Michael, thank you for your expertise on both those topics. Appreciate that. Michael Crick there, the author and broadcaster. Very much appreciate that. Thank you to our texters as well, people who are sending in messages. Testy says Larry sat on the step guarding against communism. He's reporting to MI5. He's seen it all before. Go Larry, says Testy on Tyneside. Lots of messages about Larry the cat, it must be said. Is he still there? He is. He's having a little nap just on the single step outside Downing Street. Tony says regarding Kevin Keegan, as a Newcastle supporter, he was a true hero. I got the chance to attend a talk 7 weeks ago. When asked about a statue of himself in St James's Park, Kevin said, I don't want a statue, I only want people to remember me with fondness. I'm paraphrasing. Oh, if only we had a world with more of that attitude. Rest in peace, Kevin. God bless you, from Tony in Newcastle. Not that this means anything tonight, says Tony. And Jason in Romford says, you had an interesting conversation about religion and the government. The only religion Labour care about is Islam, says Jason. And Elisa in Chelmsford says, Yvette Cooper has been a disgrace as both Home Secretary and Foreign Secretary. Her decision to send our taxes to the corrupt Hamas field UNRWA is unforgivable. That's the body which administers aid, well, it's meant to, in Gaza, of course, riddled with Hamas terrorists. She vilified Israel at every opportunity. Elisa continues, I would rather she had been sacked. What will she do about the huge number of anti-Semites in the health service? Diddly squat, I'm sure. Well, hopefully she deals with that. In 3 minutes' time, in fact, in 2 minutes' time, it will be exactly an hour since there has been any announcement of any cabinet changes. And to our knowledge, Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillipson and Lucy Powell are still inside Downing Street. Clearly this reshuffle is not going exactly as planned. Otherwise, we would have had much more rapid announcements. Let me just update my email here. No further emails from the Number 10 press office. No further appointments have been made. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about why the Ministry of Justice isn't telling the full story on migrant crime data. We'll speak to Rob Bates, the Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, in just a second. Don't go anywhere.
is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So I'm being told by a source I trust that apparently Angela Rayner is in a meeting with the propriety and ethics people. That could be an interesting one in regard to her taxes and her tax when it came to her homes. That is what I'm being told. So Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillips and Lucy Powell still in number 10. I want to talk about something else now, and David Lammy, who's just left us very sadly as Justice Secretary. There's thoughts and prayers with him as he contemplates a career on a rival radio station again, no doubt, and indeed perhaps joining Celebrity Mastermind once again. He has been accused of a cover-up as his Ministry of Justice that he's just left has been fighting to keep migrant crime data secret. Robert Bates is Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Robert, what's going on here? I know you're trying to get this information. This has been quite a long battle for you, and I just preemptively apologise if we get information about people appointed to the Cabinet. I'm going to have to interrupt you. But do tell us what's going on.
Yeah, of course. So what we're talking about here would have been the most comprehensive release of data on migrant crime, convictions broken down by nationality that this country probably has ever seen. And actually what would have been more enlightening about this information is it would have dealt with very specific offence types. It wouldn't have been the broad categories that we often see of violence against the person. This would have actually let us know how many murders had been committed by migrants, how many supply of Class A drugs and so forth. So it would have really shone a light on actually the scale of the problem. And as you say, this has been a very long, protracted battle. It's been about a year now that this has been going on, and we finally got a ruling last month from the data watchdog, the Information Commissioner's Office, that the Ministry of Justice's excuse for withholding this data fell flat. They hadn't demonstrated actually that it had legs, and therefore the Ministry of Justice was instructed to publish, as I say, the most comprehensive data set on migrant crime this country would have ever seen. And rather than accept that ruling and think, actually, no, this is probably a good thing for transparency, it will help hold us to account when we're talking a lot about the deportation of foreign nationals, and help people to understand actually the context within which this is taking place. They've decided to attempt to cover up, really, and they're dragging their heels. They're taking this now to a first-tier tribunal in the hope that they will be able to continue to cover up and to continue to delay and frustrate the release of this information. I think actually now we're at a point in the country where people are seeing news stories almost on a daily basis of crimes being committed, often by individuals that are across the channel, but in many cases individuals that are also here on a visa.
Why is it that you think, Robert, why is it that you think they're reluctant to disclose this information? They're facts. They're things that they have accumulated, and you've won, and your organisation has won a number of different rulings that says that they should publish it. Why do you think they're so reluctant to do so?
I think it's a systemic problem within the Labour Party in particular. The Tories had similar issues with it. There is, of course, some issues with the data collection, but I think when it comes to the Labour Party, we've seen endless campaigns from Labour backbenchers when it's even been suggested that this data be published previously, sort of decrying it as racist dog whistles and so forth. And I do think, therefore, Labour frontbenchers in particular have been somewhat cowed by that and reluctant to release this information on that basis, almost on a basis of party management. The country's national interest and the ability to have a proper informed discussion has been put to one side so that the Labour Party can keep itself in one piece. And I do think actually this is now not a time really for political games and for this kind of cheap underhand tactic, quite frankly. I think actually the scale of the problem that many people feel we are facing is so great, and we need to start having information that allows us to work out what the next steps would be, and whether that is visa breaks for certain nationalities, whether that is actually increased efforts to secure effective returns agreements with countries of origin. None of that really is possible unless this information is in the public domain.
Robert, thank you very much for that. I hope there is a resolution to this soon. I hope you get the information. I hope it's published, and I hope we speak again on it when it is published very soon. Appreciate that. That's Robert Bates there, who's Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control. Downing Street have said that the Prime Minister spoke to President Emmanuel Macron of France this evening. The Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, began by setting out how he's looking forward to building on the strong UK-France relationship to deliver for people on both sides of the Channel. Did he talk about immigration? Did he mention the word immigration? I'm sure Robert Bates would have liked him to. I would have liked him to as well, because we just simply haven't heard nearly enough, indeed anything, about what the Prime Minister is going to do about immigration. It's a major topic. Turning to Ukraine, the two leaders, we are told in this statement, discussed the need to work together to continue supporting Ukraine as it resists Russia's full-scale invasion, including through co-chairing the coalition of the willing. That's, of course, what Keir Starmer was so lauded for doing. On the Middle East, the statement says the two leaders agreed the need to continue efforts toward de-escalation and to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. They also discussed continuing the UK and France's close cooperation on energy and defence. And the Prime Minister paid tribute to President Macron for his efforts to bring the Bayeux Tapestry to the UK, which underlined the UK and France's enduring friendship. The two leaders look forward to speaking again, the Prime Minister welcoming President Macron to the United Kingdom at the earliest opportunity. So that is another call that he has done. He's spoken to Trump, he's spoken to Zelensky, and Burnham has spoken to Ursula von der Leyen as well, the Chesney Hawkes lookalike, who is President of the European Commission. We know as well that there is some delay, over an hour now, whatever the delay is. It involves 6 people still being in Downing Street, held captive in there. Angela Rayner, apparently part of why there is a delay. Thank you also to Kaz in Staffordshire, who's sent me a great message. She says, "Evening, Peter, great show so far, thank you. I had to watch Starmer leave Downing Street today to make sure he had gone and not done a U-turn along Whitehall to come back," which I thought was absolutely superb, Kaz. Thank you. And Kaz also says, "I love Larry the Cat." Wouldn't it be great if someone wrote a book about Larry the Cat, maybe telling a story for the first time? You never know. We will find out in the next hour, I presume, what is going on with Angela Rayner. There is clearly a delay of over an hour. There are still no further words from Downing Street about what is happening here. Let me just check I've got an email here. No, it's not about that. It's about something else from Downing Street. So no more appointments just yet. We will speak to the Conservatives about this. Graham Stewart MP, former Government Minister himself, and the Conservative MP for Beverley and Holderness. We'll talk to him in just a second. I want to hear from you as well. A bit more time in the final hour for calls. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much for all your messages that are rolling in. We will get to as many messages, calls, texts, tweets, the whole lot of it between now and 10 o'clock. We've a packed show this evening, and we've still got the camera on Downing Street. Larry is still there. He's been having a little rest now for a while, as have the press office, because they haven't put out any further information about who has been appointed to the cabinet. We've got 6 people inside, including Angela Rayner, and we don't know what they've been appointed to yet. So this reshuffle is stalling for some reason. A whisper from someone who's in the know tells me it could be to do with propriety and ethics and Angela Rayner. We'll see. We'll also get a Conservative view on this. Graham Stewart, former minister himself, he knows what reshuffles are like. Conservative for Beverley and Holderness MP. He will be joining us in a second. We'll reflect on the day and we'll get your views as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or a WhatsApp voice note, or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. There's a lot happening. We've got John Healey as Chancellor, Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary, Shabana Mahmood and Pat McFadden staying in their portfolios as Home Secretary and Work and Pension Secretary, respectively. Louise Haig is the First Secretary of State, effectively the Deputy Prime Minister, and Yvette Cooper has been moved to Health, but we don't know what's happening to the 6 people who are in there. Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillipson and Lucy Powell, and no more have been called in. They need to get this done quickly because Cabinet is at 12:30 tomorrow. So much to discuss in the next hour here on Talk. I would love to hear your views too. As I say, 0344 499 1000. Well, Keir Starmer, no longer the Prime Minister. He has pledged his full support to Andy Burnham. He gave his speech on Downing Street today. I was there. Let's see just a little snippet of what Starmer said before he went to the palace to formally resign as Prime Minister.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support.
Wes Streeting is arriving in Downing Street. We can see him going through the door there. He presumably hasn't been there since he was Health Secretary. He resigned, what was it, about a month ago? He wasn't too happy with Andy Burnham, maybe a little bit longer ago than that. He could well be back in the Cabinet. I would expect he will. He's now in Downing Street, the 7th person in there. We'll hear, I would imagine, fairly soon what's happening. Andy Burnham, now the Prime Minister, he's the person making those decisions. He came back from the palace to give his first speech as Prime Minister. This is what he said, or part of what he said, in Downing Street today.
We will make this moment a circuit breaker for Britain, bringing forward the biggest changes in the last 40 years. A new political model and a new economic model. In the 1980s, Britain took some wrong turns. Political power was centralised, economic power privatised, large parts of the country deindustrialised, and they still haven't recovered. Many feel as though they're still in decline, and they don't have the ability to turn things around, and that's why we will change politics.
It's been a momentous day politically, and by the way, it's over 2 months since Wes Streeting resigned, which shows how time flies. It's been a momentous day politically, but a very sad day in football and for the country as well. Former England manager, fantastic player, Liverpool, Manchester United, someone who was a manager of Newcastle, almost brought them to win the league as well. Kevin Keegan has died at the age of 75. He was very annoyed at Alex Ferguson at one point when Newcastle were on the cusp of winning the league. This is an iconic clip from Kevin Keegan, who's very sadly died today.
When you do that with footballers, like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart Pearce,
Kevin Keegan, who's died today at the age of 75. To talk about the politics and maybe a reflection on Kevin Keegan as well, Graham Stewart is with me, a Member of Parliament for Beverley and Holderness, a Conservative, former Minister himself. Graham, great to have you on the programme. Can I just get a quick word on Kevin Keegan before we get into the politics?
Well, as someone of sufficient age, I remember Keegan being diminutive in stature, but an absolutely brilliant player for Liverpool, for England, and as we saw in that clip, a passionate manager as well. Though as a Manchester United fan, of course, I was firmly on the side of Alex Ferguson. And I think in your intro, you mistakenly suggested he might have spent time at Manchester United. Unless I'm very much mistaken, he never did.
It wouldn't be the first time, and it won't be the last that I make a mistake about football, as I know very little about it. But Graham, thank you for that correction. I do appreciate that, because it's important to get the record correct, and thank you. We do, of course, 50-year career, player, manager and pundit. He leaves a legacy few can match. Let's talk about the politics of the day. Graham, you're no stranger to a reshuffle. We've had about an hour and 15 minutes without anybody coming out. Clearly something is going wrong. Angela Rayner may well be causing a problem. There are at least 7, if not 8 people in there at the moment awaiting jobs. What do you make of the big one, John Healey becoming Chancellor?
Well, I don't think many people saw that coming. And if finally we have a Chancellor who's prepared to cut benefits in order to deliver the defence that this country needs, then that would be something to cheer. But that's something he could do on day one. It would be nice to hear that from him instead of what we've heard from Andy Burnham so far, which is a lot of promises without any suggestion of how any of them are going to be paid for. He's also trashed the reputation of Margaret Thatcher in the 80s. Is he in any position to do so? Well, he's got his facts wrong, hasn't he? In the 80s is when, after the 70s, when we fell behind, I think we had the sort of lowest growth among major economies. In the 80s, we had the fastest growth. We were turned around by Margaret Thatcher. Where the country's gone wrong is that it's taxing too much, it's spending too much, and it isn't rewarding those who work hard and build business and create wealth. And if it doesn't do that, then all of us end up poorer, which is exactly what's happening under this Labour government. Every Labour government in history, you know this, Peter, has ended up with higher unemployment at the end than at the beginning. It's not that they mean it. It's just they don't understand how the economy works. And Andy Burnham has come out and has diagnosed things exactly the wrong way around. We need to cut back on government spending, and there's not a single area that I've heard him say so far that suggests he's going to do that. Everything is a promise to people, and the promises which will very quickly go wrong. I think it's a very fair point, actually, because we've had promises on homelessness, rough sleeping specifically. We've had promises on all sorts of things. He hasn't mentioned the word immigration, I don't think. He hasn't mentioned the words tax rises or indeed tax cuts or where he's going to get the money to do all of this. And I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'd be surprised if John Healey had agreed to become Chancellor without realising, or without an assurance at least, that that money from defence would come. I think we want the money to go into defence because it's needed, but at the same time it's got to come from somewhere. It's got to come from either putting up taxes or taking it from other departments' budgets, because if he's going to stay within the fiscal rules, he can't borrow more. No, and we know that he's making all these promises, and he doesn't seem to have had much in the way of analysis even of his record in Manchester, because he turned up in Manchester as the mayor promising to cut rough sleeping, and I think it went up. He promised to cut homelessness. It went up. Even bus use, for which he's supposed to be the champion bus guy, bus use went down. Yes. The truth is, his record in Manchester is not what he makes it out to be, and yet he stood on the steps of Downing Street today and he said, I'm going to go inside as if it was a new idea, and my first decision, I'm going to get rid of homelessness. Well, it's as if no one else had ever thought about that before. The truth is, it's extremely difficult to deliver, especially if you don't have the money. And as it is, he's announced, I think, is it 300 and something million? 340 million, but that's from an existing budget within the Ministry of Housing. Well, the unspent, it's the money that's just slushing around unspent. It's not new money. It's also on rough sleeping, which is I mean, you can throw a bit. I was when I was a special advisor, I advised on homelessness, and you can make an impact with money on rough sleeping. But whether he's going to eradicate it, I mean, that has been the policy of successive governments. It was the policy of Keir Starmer's government, it was the policy of Theresa May's government, it was the policy of, I think, every government in between. So if he does it, good for him, and I would support him in that.
But if he wants to do a job seriously on homelessness more generally, he's going to need a lot more commitment and money. I would suggest that that'll be very difficult within the constraints he finds himself. But Graham, I wonder what you make of some of the other appointments. I mean, Shabana Mahmood remaining Home Secretary, is that something you would support?
Well, she's thought to be doing a good job there. She's doing reforms which most of Labour MPs don't seem to like. So that gets a thumbs up from me. We're also seeing, so we've got Pat McFadden staying in place. That's probably, I guess, welcome. But it's just they're just moving around the same players, aren't they? I mean, we've got Wes Streeting going in. We've got the fraudster. Louise Haig. I mean, that's a really brave decision. You brought back someone who was in the cabinet but had to leave because it turned out she was a fraudster. Mm-hmm. She had lied about phones that went missing. And people who behave like that typically don't do it once in their life. So you've just got to recognise the press are going to be after her like no one's business. So if his new deputy prime minister is brought low again quite swiftly, which I wouldn't be surprised by. Meanwhile, you've got Ed Miliband. Thank the Lord that he's no longer in charge of energy policy, but he's now in charge of, the Diego Garcia military base in Chagos, MI6, GCHQ, at a time of phenomenal threat to this country, all in the hands of Ed Miliband. That's pretty frightening.
It could have been Chancellor, I suppose, but I don't know about you, Graham, but I would certainly pay to be a fly on the wall in Ed Miliband's first meeting and Andy Burnham together with Donald Trump. I think that would be amusing, if not intriguing.
Yeah, and it would be interesting to see how the night goes. Already it's falling behind. As you say, when I was put in the cabinet, it shows you how senior I was at the time, that when I was put in the cabinet, they forgot about me. And then I sat by my phone. I knew what was coming. I just needed to be called. So finally, at about 12:10, someone rang up shamefacedly going, "I'm sorry, we forgot." It was the Prime Minister herself who said, "What about Graham?" So I've never, ever, Peter, despite multiple ministerial roles over 8 years, I've never done what you can see Heidi Alexander doing on your screen at the moment. I've never walked up Downing Street.
Well, that's very disappointing. I should say that Miata Fanbulla, who is a key ally of Burnham and Heidi Alexander, as you correctly say, are in Downing Street at the moment. Angela Eagle as well is in there. There's a sort of unidentified male MP who I'm afraid I just don't know who he is. None of us here have been able to work out who it is in there too. So I think
there'll be someone new, Peter, because at the moment, I mean, the public who've taken very little notice, I think, of Andy Burnham coming along as our 7th Prime Minister or whatever it is.
Yep.
6 in 7 years or 7 in 6?
It's 7 in just over 10 years, and I think it's the 5th in 5 years.
Yeah,
or something like that. It's close to that. So a fifth in 6 years or something like that. They're
moving the furniture around on the deck of the Titanic. They're sticking with the Labour manifesto, which was a disaster. They have the same people just doing slightly different jobs, and yet.
So why is your party not doing better against them then, Graham?
Well, I think we're doing fine. Kemi Badenoch, as you know, is already the most popular leader in the country. It was only 2 years ago we got thrown out. It took us 13 years last time. Right now we're coming up. Kemi is just week in, week out, doing better than anyone else. She's already cut through with the public, and you'll have heard that on your show.
How will she oppose Andy Burnham differently, do you think, to Keir Starmer? They're two very different characters, and she's got to face both of them. Well, not anymore, but when she faces Andy Burnham, how do you think she'll deal with him?
Well, it'll be an interesting thing. He's much more fluent and fluid than Starmer, but I think she'll be very much focused on setting out the fact that only the Conservatives have a genuine plan. Burnham is talking about having a 10-year plan. Well, what is it? He's been unable to set out what he's going to do, particularly. He refuses to take any questions from journalists. Has he taken any today?
He has today actually had a briefing with political editors, and in fairness, he spoke to Chris Mason the other day as well. So he's doing a little bit more, but there's going to be plenty of scrutiny, I'm sure, from you guys and from us as journalists over the summer too.
I'm extremely, I'm not complacent because we, lost the confidence of the British people. But Kemi Badenoch and the team are working hard. I've never known the Conservative Parliamentary Party so united. We're absolutely backing Kemi. She's growing in the job all the time, which everyone acknowledges and recognises. And when we get to the next election, whenever it is, people are going to be looking to replace this Labour government. I expect so. I mean, if Burnham can turn it round so that people actually want to re-elect Labour, as they did in 2001 famously, 2005 under Blair, but that seems unlikely, in which case they're going to need a team with a plan, a leader you can trust, and frankly, that's Kemi Badenoch. It's not going to be Nigel Farage, whether he survives his latest scandal or otherwise. He's surrounded by convicted criminals, dodgy money from foreign-based crypto millionaires. I think Nigel Farage has done a tremendous amount.
Well, he would argue that the money isn't dodgy, but there we are. Thank you, Graham. Appreciate that. That's Graham Stewart MP there, Conservative MP for Beverley and Holderness, former Cabinet Minister himself. Angela Smith, Baroness Smith, has just gone in to Downing Street there as well. She is currently the Leader of the Lords. I'd be astonished if she doesn't emerge still as Leader of the Lords. She's a very trusted pair of hands. So there are now, we think, 12 people, 12 MPs and, well, 11 MPs and 1 Baroness inside Downing Street. Still no word as to any further appointments. It's been an hour and a half now since any appointments have been announced, or indeed anybody has left Downing Street. So as far as we know, Angela Rayner, Jonathan Reynolds, Lisa Nandy, Annalise Midgley, Bridget Phillipson, Lucy Powell, West Streeting Angela Eagle, Miata Fambalay, and also Heidi Alexander, Angela Smith and Alex Norris are in Downing Street at the moment. We will see when they emerge. Presumably, well, we'll be able to tell you if it's in the next 41 minutes. But we know so far that Andy Burnham is the Prime Minister, John Healey the Chancellor, Ed Miliband the Foreign Secretary, Shabana Mahmood remaining as Home Secretary, Louise Haigh is the First Secretary of State. Chris Bryant is walking up the Downing Street at the moment. He has been a junior minister, so could he be on the way to the cabinet? I think he probably is. That's Sir Chris Bryant there. He is a culture minister, if I remember correctly, and if he's going to the cabinet, that would be a first cabinet posting for him. That's off the top of my head. Yvette Cooper, I should say, is the health secretary, and Pat McFadden remaining work and pensions secretary. So we've now got 13 MPs or members of the House of Lords in number 10. We still don't have any further announcements on that. As soon as we get it, we will bring it to you, and we'll go to the phones in just a second as well. Let me just read out a couple of messages from Twitter and indeed from the WhatsApps we're getting in. David says, John Healey is a great choice for Chancellor. Ed Miliband is dangerous and should be nowhere near any government. There has been a cull of the Starmerites, a good thing. Problem now is looking after your mates like Rayner, etc. could cause problems down the road. To be honest, it's last chance saloon for this miserable bunch of political muppets, says David in Worcestershire. Trevor says, we are where we are. With the government, people have been calling for Starmer's for a long time. Let's just hope Burnham can deliver what he says and hope for the best. Let's give him a chance, says Trev in Middleton. Thank you to Nat in Tel Aviv in Israel, who says, honestly, if your leaders spent half as much time, not to mention money, worrying about the UK as they do about Ukraine, you'd have half a chance. Alex says, I don't think Christian values are a bad thing. If you look at Margaret Thatcher and the Queen, being brought up Catholic and became atheist for a long time until I started searching for happiness, which led me elsewhere. I hate the vitriol between Catholics and Protestants and feelings of hate towards one another, but do agree with the Catholic Church modernising for today's world. And Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P, hi Joanna, I'm glad to see Larry the Cat is still Chief Mouser. Lots more to report, and it's pretty dark now, to be honest, but we see another woman walking up Downing Street. I will see if I can work out who it is. It's a bit dark and my eyesight isn't what it was. I'm afraid I can't identify that person just at this moment. Oh, it's Ellie Reeves. It's Ellie Reeves. She was a minister. I think she was chairwoman of the Labour Party at one stage as well. She's Rachel Reeves' sister and also an MP. So now we are up to 13 in Downing Street. So I'd expect some form of announcement fairly soon. We'll see what those are and bring them to you, and we'll go to the phones as well. Stay with us.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Pretty busy in number 10. Ellie Reeves, who's the Solicitor General, has just gone in. Larry's at the door. We can see him there live. If you're watching on the screen, he wants in. He wants in too. Maybe he's heard about all these people who are in there, and they can give him a bit of a stroke and maybe a few dreamies as well. We'll be talking actually about how Andy Burnham can help his dog Axel get along with Larry the cat. Larry's being very patient there. I'd be scratching at that door. It is bomb-proof though, so they're unlikely to hear. If he goes in, we will bring you a live update of whether he's gone in. And remember, on Brexit, in the morning of Brexit, he wanted in and then he wanted out again. Right, let's speak to Joan in Sunderland about foreign aid. Joan, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter.
Hello, Joan.
I find it amazing that we can't find money when we need it for defence, but we can always find it for the world. There's never anything for us. And secondly, I don't know whether the Checos deal is going ahead or not, but we're going to give Mauritius megabucks to take something that belongs to us off our hands. Now, that deal, as far as I'm concerned, stinks, and it always will. Thirdly, I'm amazed that our outgoing Justice Secretary can try to stop statistics being released regarding foreign criminals.
Well, we know that's ideological, don't we, Joan? Because the information is there.
Yes, and lastly, nothing was done about the rape gangs, but on the 2nd of July this year, that piece of Pakistani trash was released from prison after doing only 14 years. Now, in the past, when we've had these gangs, nobody has been held to account because the names were forgotten or this, that and the other. There's 4 names in the frame that I won't forget. Our outgoing Prime Minister Starmer, outgoing Attorney General Hermer, outgoing Justice Secretary Lammy, and the present Home Secretary Mahmood. Now, I don't know who signed off his release. Obviously, it
would have been a parole board. It wouldn't have been any of those people. It would have been an operationally independent decision. But I'm with you, Joan. I think he should have spent 19 years there, and I think he should be on a fast plane back to Pakistan after that period. I wonder, Joan, what you think about what... hold on. Apologies, Joan. We'll have to end the call because we do have some cabinet announcements. But listen, thank you, Joan. We'll come back to you, no doubt. Again, let me just tell you exactly what's happened. Angela Rayner is back at her old stomping ground. She is Housing, Communities and Local Government Secretary again. Jonathan Reynolds has also been back at his old stomping ground. He is the business secretary, but they've merged the different departments. So he is Secretary of State for Business, Innovation, Science and Trade, or BIST. So BIST is Business, Innovation, Science and Trade. So they've abolished the Science, Innovation and Technology department that is there. Also, Lucy Powell is the Education Secretary. So what's happened to Bridget Phillipson, we don't know, but Lucy Powell is the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party and also Education Secretary. As I predicted, and as I'm not surprised to report, Annalise Midgley is the Chief Whip. She's going to be a member of Cabinet too. Annalise Midgley is a very, very close supporter of Andy Burnham. Bridget Phillipson is a full member of Cabinet. She's also a Minister for Women and Equalities, reporting to the Prime Minister. So she is not Education Secretary anymore. She was Education Secretary and Women and Equalities Minister. She's now just Women and Equalities Minister, but she's reporting to the Prime Minister. She's not under any other Cabinet Minister. So that, I think, tells you quite a lot about what the Burnham government wants to do in terms of ensuring that women and equalities are a big part of what it does as a government. So it'll be interesting to see. And the Department for Business and Trade was going to be renamed the Department for Business, Innovation, Science and Trade, or DBIST. So that is the announcement that Angela Rayner, Housing Secretary, Jonathan Reynolds, Business Secretary, Lucy Powell, Education Secretary, Annalise Midgley, Chief Whip, and Bridget Phillipson is Minister for Women and Equalities, but that is a cabinet level position. Still don't know what has happened to Lisa Nandy. We don't know what's happened to Wes Streeting, Angela Eagle, Miata Fanbelay, Heidi Alexander, Angela Smith, Alex Norris, Chris Bryant or Ellie Reeves. Maybe we'll find out before too long. We'll take a call now from Andrea in Essex just before we go to the break. Andrea, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Oh, Pete, just hearing about Angela Rayner, well, it just confirms to me that I believe that Burnham is as crooked as a dog's hind leg. But that's not why I called. I called to say that I think Ed Miliband knew he'd dug an enormous hole for himself, an abyss. And he said to Burnham, help me out, mate. I've gone way too far. I don't know what to do. Everybody hates me. I've totally messed it up. Throw me a lifeline. Drop me down a ladder and make me something else.
Do you think Do you think that's what happened when he realised he'd gone too far on net zero?
I do. I absolutely do, because he was so wedded to it, wasn't he? And I think he wouldn't have given up that position lightly, but I think he's thought, bloody hell, get me out of here.
I think he believes the stuff, though, don't you? I mean, is he going to have? He's not going to have as much influence as Foreign Secretary, is he?
No, but I think he did believe it until he might be losing a position. And then he thought, oh, well, I'll throw my position away. That's what I firmly believe. Angela Rayner, unbelievable. But my quick condemnation, because I know you've got to go to break, my condemnation is about Louise Haigh. What a disgrace. And now Angela Rayner. I'm telling you, Peter, I'm disgusted.
We've got a convicted fraudster on a tax cheat in government this evening.
Andy Burnham is rotten, in my view. Absolutely rotten through and through.
Andrea, thanks for your comments. And you're one of the very few people who knows that they have to be brief because to go to a break. It's my job to keep us on the straight and narrow, but I do appreciate that, your consideration with that, Andrea. And Angela Rayner just leaving Downing Street now. She's walking through to the Foreign Office entrance, and she is the new Housing Secretary. That is the direction of Marsham Street, where she has become the new Housing Secretary, back to her old branch. Back to her old stomping ground, it must be said. Larry the cat seems to have got inside Downing Street now. Dale and Staining has been in touch and says, great show and coverage as always. Two things: Larry the cat, the most loyal number 10 resident ever, and secondly, you squinting up the screen is rather funny. I should have bought my glasses today. Usually when I'm doing reshuffle on Downing Street, and I've done a few of them, I wear my glasses because I am quite short-sighted, but it's also trying to work out, I think that is Emma Reynolds now who is on Downing Street. I don't think I'm squinting, I can just see her because she's in a nice bright jacket. She is the Environment Secretary and she has gone in now, but we've had some of those appointments in the last few minutes. Angela Rayner, Housing Secretary, Lucy Powell, Education Secretary, Annalise Midgley is the Chief Whip, Bridget Phillipson, Minister for Women and Equalities, and Jonathan Reynolds, the Business Secretary. We're going to talk about Larry in a minute and how you might get on with Axel the dog, because Andy Burnham has, well, I had it told to me by a senior figure within Downing Street that whether Axel even goes to Downing Street or not is quote-unquote TBC. I've been trying to get an answer out of them for days. Loads to discuss with Nikki Trevorrow from Cats Protection, brilliant human being and animal expert. Stay with us here on Talk and get your call in if you want to get your voice on the air in the next half an hour. 0344 499 1000. And if you're watching on the screen, you can see Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary. He's gone from chief whip to business secretary, back to his old department, but it's a souped up department. It's now BIST. It is Business, Innovation, Science and Technology. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's contributed to the programme so far. We'll get to more of your calls, I promise, between now and 10 o'clock. But I want to speak to Nikki Trevorrow now, who is one of the wonderful people from Cats Protection, which is a fantastic charity of which I am a member. She's the behaviour manager there. Nikki, great to have you on the line. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Peter. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I have had it, I've had it TBC'd by number 10 this evening. I keep asking them when Axel, the rescue dog, who's Andy Burnham's dog, who they got from the Dogs Trust, boo, not Cats Protection, will be in.
We don't have cats.
Well, I know you don't have dogs. I know you don't have dogs, but nonetheless, they're a rival. Presumably, when it comes to the Christmas and when it comes to the football matches and things, you're maybe against them. But Axel and Larry need to be kept apart to some degree anyway. And Larry, of course, he's been there for a very long time. I mean, he looks lovely and he is lovely, and I've met him on a number of occasions. But he's also, he can be pretty fierce as well. Boris Johnson did an interview for my book, which I'm now going to have to mention, Political Animals, and he said that Larry is very strong and very fierce.
Amazing. I mean, all cats are different, so I think it's about taking the individual personalities into account whenever doing like an introduction between two different animals. Yeah,
and how do you best do that if Larry is to coexist peacefully? Because when Starmer had his two cats, Jojo, who was a rescue cat, and then Prince the kitten, it was they weren't even introduced to Larry because Larry is so territorial.
Yeah, so it's certainly much harder when a cat is territorial, and also he's getting older. He's 19, so he's less likely to accept another animal into his territory, which of course number 10 is. But every animal's an individual, so potentially it could work out with Axel. The main thing is to do it extremely slowly and gradually.
And what plan would you suggest for Andy Burnham and his family if they want to introduce Axel?
So obviously keep the animals in separate territories to start with, and ideally not somewhere that's like Larry's favourite place to be for Axel. And then the most important part of the whole process is actually scent swapping. So this is where you collect the scent from the cat's like cheeks onto a nice clean cloth, and then for Axel it'll be like sort of under his armpits and things like that. And then you swap the cloth and pop them in the other animal's environment and just allow that animal to come up and give it a sniff in their own time. It's all about giving them choice, predictability, and a sense of control. And then just, topping up the scent, daily for, probably weeks, to be honest, and then take it from there.
So it really takes a while, Nikki, to introduce these two to one another, especially when one animal is very established in the territory and has, in Larry's case, seen off quite a few other animals.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. I think people sometimes underestimate the process and think, let's just put them together and they'll work it out for themselves. And, it couldn't be further from the truth. The way to set them up for success is really to do things very slowly at the animal's own pace and just really assessing the behaviour and seeing, how does the animal feel about this? How does Larry and Axel feel? Are they ready to progress to the next step or not?
Have you seen it go wrong? Can you, if it hasn't happened correctly, if people do throw animals together, can you retrospectively fix it, or is it too far gone by that stage?
So there will always be the few lucky individuals, and I know they'll be out there listening as well, so it's thinking like, oh, I've done this and it was absolutely fine. Yay for them. But the vast majority of the cases, of course, that me and my team get involved in is when it's gone wrong. Or I'd hopefully prophylactically in getting people to take the advice before it goes wrong. But if it does go wrong, it's all about going back a few steps and potentially going back to the full separation and then scent swapping and taking it slowly from there. And then building in like sort of treats and things like that to try and form a positive association with that scent. And so little and often potentially it's possible to change the animal's perception of the other animal, but it just depends.
Cats Protection is a brilliant charity of which I'm absolutely proud to be a member of. How important is it, and what sort of signal would it send for Andy Burnham to say, look, this is my rescue dog. This is an animal that I didn't buy from a breeder. I got it from the Dogs Trust. There are loads of really good rescue organisations, such as Cats Protection. There are lots of others like Battersea and the Mayhew, where Jack's from. He's in Olympus. From there, my cat. And he was a rescue. I mean, what sort of signal would it send if you have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom standing over this rescue dog saying, adopt, don't shop?
Oh, absolutely huge. It's amazing news to have Prime Minister having a rescue dog from a reputable charity such as the Dogs Trust. And, we'd be completely proud, to really sort of, like you say, if he stands by it and does give that message out to the public.
Also, John Healey, who's the new Chancellor, he doesn't have any animals, I'm told, by those in the know, but he very sadly had his dog die reasonably recently within the last couple of years. So if he was thinking of adopting maybe a cat or a dog, what advice would you give him?
So the advice I'd give is obviously to adopt, if and when ready, because everybody's different in terms of grief. It really does vary. And we do have our pause to listen service if you wanted to have someone to listen to who really understands and gets what it's like. And then when they are ready to come to a reputable charity like Cat Protection or Dogs Trust or the others that you've mentioned, and really talk through sort of like what you're looking for out of a pet and your sort of requirements, lifestyle, things like that. And then they're experts at matching the animal to the right owner and vice versa. So it's sort of like a little matchmaking process, and that's what's really important.
Absolutely. Nikki, you do great work, and it's a pleasure to speak to you again. Thank you for joining me on the show. That's Nikki Trevorrow there, who's the Animal Behaviour Manager from Cats Protection. She is fantastic. I've had her on programmes before, and indeed I've asked her for her great expertise on my own cat, Jack, at one point previously when he was being a bit bitey, it must be said, but no longer, which is fantastic. Dave in Kent says, Graham Stewart, the Tory MP, he's deluded if he thinks the Tories are going to win the next election. My wife, my brother, my sister-in-law, all ex-Tory voters, I will never vote for them again, says Dave in Kent. Badenoch and her crew are not to be trusted. Reform UK for us. And Lorraine says, we now in Burnham have a man who disrespects the centuries of governing from Number 10 and address world famous. He disrespects the office of Prime Minister by refusing to wear attire suitable for his office. Disrespects Makerfield by already abandoning his election claims. Disrespects the Cabinet by filling it with a convicted criminal, a tax dodger, a fake solicitor and a liar, and a woman who thinks that rape gang concerns are just dog whistling. He refuses to answer questions, bans certain journalists, and his first major speech was about supporting a country run by terrorists who raped and butchered over 1,000 innocent civilians. Finally, he sits down for a cosy chat with the anti-Semite Gary Lineker. I'm sure Gary Lineker would deny being anti-Semitic, but that is Lorraine's perspective. This is now serious. Burnham is a disgrace, says Lorraine. Thank you for that. Let's speak to Grace in Ealing, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Why am I not surprised to hear from you this evening, Grace? Foreign aid, the budget is going up to 0.7. That's what Andy Burnham wants. I'm sure it's what you want too, but a lot of our viewers and listeners concerned that that money could be spent and should be spent, in their view, in the UK. What would you say to them?
I would say, first of all, I'll believe this when I see it, because I can never be certain of what's going to happen until it's been officially done with politics. But I think that people might want to keep in mind that ultimately politicians spend foreign aid because it is in the interest of our country. My primary concern is human beings, and so I want for the people in our world who are in the very most severe need. You know, we talk about poverty here, but when the word poverty is used in Britain, it refers to relative poverty, which is not the same as actually not having any clean water to drink and not actually having any access to healthcare at all, or being literally starving. So I really want for those human beings to be helped. And what's really exciting is that the money makes far more impact helping those people than it could make here. So if you spend 100 quid here, you're not going to be able to make at all as much impact as you could do if you spent that £100 on helping people in the poorest parts of the world, which is why most of us can actually, even if we've only got a really tiny amount that we can afford to give, we can make quite a significant impact, which I find really, really exciting.
There'll be a lot of people, Grace, who will sympathise with your argument, but say, why are we giving billions abroad? Yes, it can go a long way. Yes, it can help needy people. We're a very generous country. We're very generous people. The British people give far more per capita than many other countries to charities and to good causes. But there is undeniably a problem with this country, with the economy here, with how it's run, and many people believe the money would be better spent here.
Well, that there's a problem with how things are run, indeed. I mean, a lot of money here is not very efficiently spent. I mean, I was reading yesterday that about a tenth of council houses have at least 2 spare rooms, for example. Now, that's not to criticise at all those people, but we know, and when we hear about benefits being given for certain conditions, that some of the resources in the UK aren't being used super efficiently. And again, that's not to criticise those people. It's simply to make the point that actually the UK is not a poor country. It's just not being very well run. And a lot of the money that's in our economy, which is still one of the biggest economies on the planet, with far more per capita than most other countries, a lot of the money that's here has ultimately come from elsewhere, and far more money comes to the wealthy world than is given from the wealthy world to poorer countries. So even though we give money in aid, we actually get far more money coming in the opposite direction, partly because of really unjust third world debt, which has ridiculous interest rates and debt vultures who buy it up. So as well as increasing foreign aid, something Andy Burnham actually ought to do, which wouldn't cost the British taxpayer, would be to end that third world debt through which people are being really exploited. In the same way that students have to pay out far more in student loans than they take out in the first place, with third world countries, they end up having to pay way, way, way more than they ever borrowed in the first place. So if Andy Burnham were to address that, that could really help the poorest people in our world. Ultimately, people in the very poorest parts of the world didn't choose to get born into those situations, and foreign aid does things like tackle terrorism. It tackles certain diseases that will ultimately come here and affect us if they aren't tackled. It helps various things that are in Britain's own interest. So even if you don't care about people elsewhere, which I think people should, you could still care about foreign aid.
Grace, thank you. You've made a compelling case there. I wonder what people think of it. 0344 499 1000. We've just seen a tall man with a bald head walking into Downing Street, and it's on the tip of my tongue what his name is, but I can't just... I've been working for about 14 hours now, pretty consistently, and I'm not saying I'm working any harder than anybody else, but my brain has been pretty engaged in politics, and I can't remember his name, but we'll find out who it is. What we do know is that, along with everybody else in Downing Street, Matthew Pennycook, who's the Housing Minister, and Kanishka Narayan, who is the Junior Minister for AI and Online Safety, they have both gone in, so I'd predict they'd probably get cabinet roles. I think it's probably only the cabinet roles that you're going to see people walking up Downing Street to get. So I wonder whether Matthew Pennycook could be off somewhere like Northern Ireland, perhaps. Kanishka Narayan might be too, although AI and online safety may well be a full cabinet role. I know he did a number of media interviews recently, and he was certainly impressed with those. So I wonder if he could be a full Secretary of State in that, especially as we have seen that Government Department of Business and Trade is now the Department of Business, Innovation, Science and Trade, so, or DBIST. So I'm sure a few civil servants who are moving department once again will be DBIST off with that change to government. We'll talk to Professor Patrick Diamond, the former Labour Policy Advisor, in just a minute. We will also speak to more callers as well. If you want to get your voice on the air, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in Crisis. Subscribe to The Royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It was Hamish Faulkner, the Foreign Office Minister. I knew who it was. I just couldn't quite, just at that exact moment. I remember being on Downing Street. I think I was actually speaking to Jeremy Kyle at the time, if I remember correctly, and a man came up and I didn't know who it was, and it was Mark Spencer, who became the Chief Whip. And as I said afterwards, you know, that was not just not knowing who the person was, that was not knowing it was Mark Spencer. Hamish Faulkner is in Downing Street at the moment, as is Matthew Pennycook, the Housing Minister. Kanishka Narayan, who is the AI and Online Safety Minister, is in. Ellie Reeves is in. Emma Reynolds is in. Chris Bryant, Alex Norris, Angela Smith. She's been in for ages. Heidi Alexander, Miata Famboulay, Angela Eagle, Wes Streeting, Lisa Nandy. Seems forever since Wes Streeting went in. What we do know is a number of appointments. John Healey is the Chancellor, Ed Miliband Foreign Secretary, Shabana Mahmood stays as Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper's gone to Health, Louise Haigh is the First Secretary of State, Pat McFadden is working pensions still, Angela Rayner goes back to being Housing Secretary, Lucy Powell is Education Secretary, Annalise Midgley is Chief Whip, Bridget Phillipson's been demoted to Minister for Women and Equalities, but she still retains a cabinet level position. And Jonathan Reynolds has gone back to being Business Secretary, but in a beefed up department. We can see Louise Haigh there on the screen at the moment. She is First Secretary of State, effectively the Deputy Prime Minister. Let's speak to Professor Patrick Diamond, former Labour Policy Advisor. Patrick, thank you for joining me on the programme this evening. What do you make of these appointments? What's the overall narrative, do you think, especially from someone who said he wasn't going to be factional? Quite a number of these appointments seem pretty factional to me. What's your take on it?
Yeah, well, good evening, Peter. I think in many ways it will be seen as a real Labour cabinet, which is, of course, what Andy Burnham's been talking about. He's going to be, more Labour than any previous Prime Minister. And I think you've got, a group of politicians who would be seen as, very strong traditional Labour politicians. I don't think it's about left or right, but it's certainly about, as Andy Burnham would see it, being real Labour. And I think these appointments reflect that.
Yeah, and did you see John Healey coming as Chancellor? I mean, that is going to be... I know I was chatting to someone, WhatsApping someone in the Ministry of Defence earlier today who declared themselves cock-a-hoop at the fact that John Healey, who has such a commitment to defence spending, he can't not give them the money now, presumably.
Well, it's going to be a difficult conversation, isn't it, if he tries to refuse the funding that MOD has requested.
Isn't this the thing you resigned over?
Exactly. But no, John Healey is something of a surprise appointment. I certainly didn't see it coming. You can see the logic behind it, strong, loyal, experienced politician. And of course, he's been in the Treasury before. Yeah. I think the question some people will ask will be, does he have the policy creativity, the radicalism to really shake up the Treasury in the way that Andy Burnham wants? But then Andy Burnham would say he's going to provide that from number 10 anyway. So it's about getting the right balance between number 10 and the Treasury.
It's a very good point, actually. It's interesting because Andy Burnham seems to have quite a clear idea what he wants to do. We have a lot more information today than we did yesterday, and certainly over the course of his campaign to become Labour leader, about what he actually wants to do. How much freedom do you think those Secretaries of State will have to do what they want to do? Or will it be, ironically, perhaps a more centralised operation than they were perhaps predicting?
No, I think you make an excellent point. And one of the sort of paradoxes here is that Andy Burnham's been talking a lot about devolution and decentralisation. And I've got no doubt that he does want to decentralise power to the regions. But I think the government he runs is going to be an Andy Burnham-driven operation with very strong central control. And he's signalled that, I think, already today in the interviews and interventions that he's made. And I think the cabinet appointments all also reflect that. Look, these ministers will be running their departments, of course, but it looks as if they're going to be given a very strong steer on their agenda by the Prime Minister, who's going to run a strong number 10 operation backed up by his new Chief of Staff, of course, James Pennell.
Given what we know so far, do you think tax rises are likely? Because what he wants to do is really ambitious. He's talking about changing the economic and political nature of this country, the biggest amount of reform in 40 years.
Yeah, I think some tax changes are likely. They may not be headline changes to the income tax rate or to VAT on national insurance. But yeah, some changes to taxes, maybe to do with property, assets, capital gains, would seem likely. I don't think huge sums of money, but enough for Andy Burnham to be able, for example, to put some resources towards cost of living measures, trying to get energy prices down, maybe trying to do something about transport costs. So I think
on the tax sorry to interrupt you, Patrick, but the tax threshold as well is something he's talked about a lot. A lot of pensioners brought into tax as well. We could get something as soon as tomorrow on that.
I don't think we'll see that tomorrow. There has been discussion about Andy Burnham bringing forward a budget and spending review in the autumn. So it'd be a package of measures looking both at taxes and the overall spending envelope. No doubt maybe trying to shift money from some areas into areas like defence, but also looking at his own priorities, the things that he really wants to achieve as Prime Minister.
Patrick, let's have a longer conversation the next time, but I always appreciate your common sense and contributions to the programmes. Professor Patrick Diamond there, former Labour policy advisor, thanks for joining me on the programme. Thanks to Carol in Liverpool as well. He says, I'm an older lady, I'm happy to be one. What are we supposed to be called in this debate about whether you can call people old or not? Shell says, sorry, but as always, I vehemently disagree with Grace. Tell the veteran on the street who's sharing his last scrap of food and water with his dog with no warmth in the rain, fear of being attacked, tell him that he's not in relative poverty. A silly woman who does not get it, she's on another planet, says Michelle. Ernie says about Lammy blocking the number of migrants and foreign national crime figures, they must be massive for him to do that, yet none are going to jail because there's no room. So what is being done to them? I hope they're not being let off. Betty says if the NGO and charities actually give the money to poor people, maybe that would have an effect. There's been enough cash given to Africa and Asia to turn all into Dubai. It's just a business. And Phil says we've been giving these foreign countries millions for decades and the same problems exist. Why aren't their governments putting these problems right after years of aid? Mark in Lincolnshire is giving me a ring. Mark, your impressions of today, just briefly, if you would.
Actually, Peter, I think everybody's been talking quite enough about Andy Burnham. Can I tell you a little bit of a feel-good story that I just found out about today?
Go for it.
I don't know whether you ever heard this one. It was in October 21. A young woman named Nadia Popovici, a Seattle Kraken fan, which is a hockey team, tried to get the attention of a guy called Red Hamilton, who's the equipment guy, works behind the bench for the Vancouver Canucks. Tried to get his attention, but obviously he can't hear her. He finally sees her, but he can't hear what she's saying. She gets her phone out, types on her phone and puts it to the glass. And what was on her phone was, the mole on your neck is cancer.
Okay.
So he goes, okay. And about a day or two later, he thought, well, she was really determined to get hold of me, to get me attention. So I'll get it checked out. So he got it checked out. Turned out it was a malignant melanoma.
Right.
So she kind of essentially saves his life. Massive retweet exercise after that. They eventually tracked this woman down. As I said, found out there was this woman, Nadia Popovici. And at the next game, when the Canucks were at the Seattle Kraken, they did an announcement on the game. She got standing ovation from the crowd. And both the teams had come together and donated $10,000 towards her medical training, because she was a medical student, you see.
That's lovely. That's a really, really good story. Thank you for that, Mark. That's a nice, bright note on which to end it. I'm hearing that Alex Norris is the new Northern Ireland Secretary as well. That hasn't been officially announced yet, but I'm being told that by my sources. And thank you to this person who says, great show. I'm beginning to see why you took the 7 to 10 slot. It's also called Saved Me money because I'm not watching Amazon or Netflix in the evening. So there we are. Petri Hoskin, how are you doing? Lovely to see you.
Yeah, lovely. You must be exhausted. You've been out and about today as
I'm
well.
all right. I'm doing a day's work, but days like today, this is my FA Cup final.
Yeah, this is your FA Cup final. And
or my World Cup final.
And you get them every...
Yeah, very often.
You get them every year.
Exactly.
Almost.
Well,
I mean,
it's happening all the time.
You know, it's good for you. And obviously, we're going to continue looking at this. There's still more to come, as you know. They've let Larry in, I see.
They have, yes.
Phew.
Yes. No, it's all good.
Yeah, that's good, because I saw Larry lying out there and I was a bit worried for a while. But anyway, Larry's back in, the most stable presence in Downing Street.
Yes, indeed.
For
Been
now,
there for
anyway.
16 years.
Yeah,
If only someone would write a book about him,
I
Petri.
know, that would be such a good
great, wouldn't
idea.
it?
So we're going to be looking at that. Also, I'm going to be talking about what he's trying to say with the no lectern thing and all of these subtle differences that he's making, and how does he manage the fact that he really doesn't have this mandate that everybody's talking about. So just really looking to see, and the idea of a business-friendly socialism. You know, there's a lot of buzzwords going around that I don't quite understand. Also, we're going to be looking at his position on the world stage, because as much as he might want to stay at home, is he going to find that events, dear boy, take him
And you get
overseas?
dragged into these things. I mean, you can't not go to the UN. You can't not go to NATO.